It costs that much cause it takes me fucking hours. It costs that much cause I don't have superpowers. So you need to pay for my skills cause exposure doesn't pay the bills. It costs that much cause it takes me fucking hours. You need to pay for my skills cause exposure doesn't pay the bills. It costs that much cause it takes me fucking hours.
What? We got Marcus Cage in the house today. We're going to be talking about high strangeness in the Bible tonight. Or today. I'm Mundus Ultra.
Well, if there's a good thing.
Hello, good afternoon, good evening, all that good stuff. It's me, Uncle Warren. Long time no see. It must have been what, 12 hours? I don't know, 18 hours. I'm not a time lord. I don't know how that works. Hope everybody's having a great Sunday afternoon. We're gonna start your evening off right with some really fun stuff here. I'm gonna bring Marcus in here in just a second. First off, if you are new to the channel, please do us a favor. Let's bring our cow home, right? We want to bring our cow home. So to do that, you got to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. You know, we do this on Sundays, and it's usually a good time. And tell your friends about it. And if you don't have any friends, be a better person. Get some friends. All right. Cow officially saved, and now we are in the fabled catbird seat. So we've got some folks in the chat already. Good to see everybody. We got John Kemper, good to see you. A couple of our producers are here. Beast, Les Bones, and Pacheco Rome, good to see you. And Pacheco's also pulling double duty on the Rockfin, giving us $5 tip. Thank you. Very nice of you. We got Denver over there on the Rockfin too as well. Plus we got Rick, and we've got Miss Jimmy, and we've got who else we got in here? We've got Kate in here, and Noli D making the cameo appearance at the top of the show there. So good to see everybody, and let's go ahead and bring in my buddy. You know him as the host of Thinking with Young Morpheus, and also the co-host of the Political Matrix. Let's bring him in. You know this guy. Come on, it's Marcus Cage, right? This guy. Hello, good sir.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Man, I'm easy like Sunday morning, or in this case, Sunday afternoon. You know, I usually do this show alone, and it's kind of I like talking about the topics, but I really like talking about this stuff to other people, right? You know, and I talk with the chat and everything, but I don't get a voice or a face back. So now, not only do I get a voice and a face, I get somebody who actually knows a lot about this kind of stuff, and I'm really excited to pick your brain about this stuff. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, and I also want to shout out, as you guys see in my back screen, you know, Hero Apologetics with Young Morpheus and Jose, my colleague Jose, and my reader. So shout out him. He might be hopping into the chat later on. But thank you for having me. When I heard about your show, I definitely want to get into the topics because I think a lot of people have there's a lot of cool things that they might not realize that it talks about in the Bible that we talk about in secular terms, or there's
Hmm.
overlap. Because you have the evangelicals that push the love, 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 faith, 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 and that's all it's about. Jesus walked on water, flipped some wine, and boom, that's the end of the story. So let's bring out some of the more interesting things that are not talked about very often.
Now you were on I think it was like a year ago or so with I think it was Steve Poikonen and Chris, your partner from Political Matrix, and we were going down the rabbit hole on the Extra Bulla
Yeah.
live show, and ever since that day, I was like, yeah, we got to do more of these kinds of shows. And when I started doing this show, I said, you were the first person that thought about to be a guest on here. I wanted to get a few shows in, right? Because I want to get my feet wet. I want to, set up house, make sure the home is nice so I can have some guests in. And sure enough, we got everything. So the kids seem to be digging it so far. So, I think today you guys are in for a really special treat because usually this show is only an hour. Today we're doing the long haul because there is a lot to talk about. The Bible is just so full of crazy stuff. And I'm a big sci-fi nut geek and stuff like that, and there's a lot of those kind of elements in the Bible too. So now you can be Buzz Killington because we want to hear the truth. Okay, so if I'm I'm throwing all this wild shit out at you, you bring me back. Just say, hey, that's not how it is. This is how it actually is. So because it's fun to kind of fantasize and think about this kind of stuff, but we also want to know the truth, right? So and you are the truth teller today, and we appreciate you being here. So we got Fuzz the Ephraimite.
Ephraim. Yeah.
Ephraimite. Okay. Ephraimite. I'm sorry.
That's Jose there, my colleague. And so and I'm glad you said that because I'm going to, and I'll tell people, you guys feel free to disagree with my interpretations of some of this stuff. That's perfectly fine, but I'm going to give it to you as solidly as I possibly can, and hopefully that the Holy Spirit works through me, and I'm able to, convey what needs to be conveyed and dispel some of the things that need to be dispelled. But I want to throw out also, I really like that intro. Pretty cool, Warren.
Oh, thank you. I worked very hard on that. So, and I got lucky too. So, when you're able to steal elements like that without, getting caught, shh, don't tell nobody. But all that stuff that's in the intro, I mean, particularly my boy Tesla, I'm building the hype for the Tesla show because that's probably going to be another long haul one too. There's so many things about Nikola Tesla that you can talk about. Hey, if you want to come back for that one too, the door is always open. In fact, I'll make you a key for the front door, so you just come in whenever the hell you want, brother. We got Yipper in the house too. Yeah, no problem. Yipper's here. Good to see you. What is this? Yipper is saying, what is this? What is happening? Where am I? Who are y'all? Who am I? Yipper, when in my younger days,
I answer some of those questions.
Exactly. I was going to say in my younger days, that's what I would say every Sunday morning. Like, what? Huh? What? After a night of having a little bit of the grandpa's cough medicine. So, we also have a thing in the we have a poll that we're running too. So if you haven't checked that out, so do you think the Bible should be taken literally or figuratively? And the options are literally, figuratively, or neither. So right now, just a few votes. So we've got figuratively so far in the lead, and neither in second place, and literally in third place. So, and I'm pretty sure you and I are gonna delve into that. What things that you should take literally in the Bible and things you should probably take figuratively. So, because I grew up as a Southern Baptist, right? So I have a little taste of knowledge when it comes to the Bible. And I think even back then I was just more curious about the books of like Genesis and Revelation, where all all the good stuff happens. You know, I say good, I mean the good weird stuff. So and there's plenty of stuff to talk about that tonight. So let's anything you want to mention or say before we get started?
Well, I like to add on to what you just said there. A lot of times when I'm teaching people and talking to them about the Bible, especially for you talked about sci-fi, for people who are like fans of shows like Game of Thrones, for instance, I liken the Bible and the early history and end times to that. In Game of Thrones, at the very beginning, you get these different mystical, supernatural things that are going on, and then it gets mundane back to very practical life, and everything is kind of it's easily explainable. It's not complicated. It's normal day-to-day life. Then you get little moments of mysticism in there, supernatural. Just like in life, we have a whole bunch of unexplained different things. And then at the very end, then it gets all supernatural all over again. And so the Bible is like that. And then you also have to, be able to separate which parts are they talking about literal, which parts are actual documented history that ties along with secular history, and which parts are metaphors or figures, or similes. So you have to understand all those different things.
Right on, right on. Well, let's get started, man. Like I said, I've sent you kind of my grocery list of things I wanted to talk about, and you threw some in the mix too. So we're not sticking to a script or anything like that. If we got to go all over the place, we'll do it. So as long as it's very interesting, and I know it's going to be so. Well, I mentioned Genesis, so let's start off with Genesis here. There are a lot of things in Genesis people are not too privy about. It's a kind of a confusing. But even like the layperson who's not even really religious have seen shows like Ancient Aliens and stuff like that. And I know you're gonna be like, okay, well, Ancient Aliens kind of does a little stretchy. And you have to take Ancient Aliens with a grain of salt. But at the same time, if it piques your interest in these subjects, at least that's a benefit to those kind of shows. So if it gets you to find some real knowledge somewhere, that's what I'm talking about. So let's talk about, in the book of Genesis, you have like the earth was created in 6 days, and God rested on the seventh day, right?
Which we have to stop you there. Which as a Hebrew Israelite in particular, like our field of how we understand the Bible is, we don't believe that that's 6 days in the sense of where Christianity believes is 6 days. We believe that 6 days, if you like it, and there's multiple scriptures you can go into that likens God's day or the Most High's day as equivalent to 1,000 years. So we would say each of those days are 1,000 years.
Well, let me ask you, is this where people get, I've seen like people making wisecracks about religious people talking about how the earth is only 6,000 years old. Is that where that comes from? Is like the 1,000 years for each day? Okay.
Well, the Christianity literally believes that those 6 days were actual 6 24-hour days in our sense. And then everything goes from there. So they would have the world timeline at anywhere from 6,000 to probably around maybe, I want to say 7,000 years old to what they interpret most stuff. I mean, 6 to 7 is probably max. Most Christians, and I'm talking about Catholic, evangelicals, Seventh-day Adventists, like the whole works, Protestant, Lutheran, all of them.
Yeah, I see. That's the thing. That's one of those things you don't take literally, right? So, because the Bible, it's not 6 days, although it's God. So, if God is omnipotent, in theory, really, he could create. He could have done it in 6 of our days, but like you said,
we take it to the fact of, because you can see where multiple times in Scripture it talks about one of his days is 1,000 years. He wouldn't be referring to our days, because if you even just going off the biblical understanding, the first couple of days there's no people, so it wouldn't be on the measurement of a person's time. It would be on the measurement of God's time, which would be a lot longer than our time period. And then also you can see, I'm not going to say that I believe that we came from some Amobi and then eventually grew up to a shrew and then eventually start going through, you know, Darwin's theory. I'm not saying I believe in evolution like that, but
Right.
he did. It was a certain form of evolution that went on within his creation.
So Denver on Rockfin has a question. It says, in Norse mythology, the tree that they call I don't know how you pronounce this. Yggdrasil. Yggdrasil? Is the G set? Okay.
I know what you're talking about.
Okay. That word is the tree of life, and this predates Abrahamic religions by thousands of years. Was the life tree concept appropriated?
Well, if you see, here's the thing. The earliest remains of people would be in the area of, say, Africa to the so-called Middle East. So therefore, in order for Norse mythology to predate it, you'd have to have people which predated those people in that area. So what I believe in, you know, speaking for Jose also, the biggest problem that most people have is the timelines of everything. The timelines are completely off whack. And so you have some people saying, oh, well, this is, you know, 6,000, 7,000. You have other people who are saying we're looking at 12,000 to 13,000. You have other people who are saying 500,000. You have other people who are saying 400 million. You have other people who are saying 100 billion. And then even in some of these soils where they dig up, you know, and they do carbon dating and say, oh, well, this right here dates to 2 million years ago. And you have a beer bottle sitting there in it, which you can tell is easily from the 1950s. It shows that a lot of these measurements, which they're doing to try to understand and give times, are inaccurate and are guesses at best. So there is no standard of time which we could decide, oh, well, this was 10,000, this was 45,000 years ago. So therefore, this had to predate that. That's where the rub comes in for me, in my opinion.
Right on. Jimmy in the chat, she always saves my ass. She said, Yggdrasil is how you pronounce that. Thank you, Jimmy. I've been saying YGG, I don't know, XQ. I'll put a Klingon letter in there. I don't know, but it's still fascinating. So let's talk about Genesis, like the big stuff in Genesis, right? So you have, wait, let me get my notes here. So you have the Watchers, right? Which, now that's, okay. Now, I think Enoch is not mentioned in Genesis, right? Enoch is mentioned later in the Bible, right? Okay. Yes. But he does mention something about the Watchers.
Actually, let me correct myself. I believe Genesis is, I believe Enoch might be in Genesis, but a little bit later in Genesis, and not at the very beginning.
Yeah, and it's just a very brief mention too, right? It's just like,
yeah, he's very briefly mentioned.
It basically describes what sounds like as a UFO abduction too. It says he didn't die, but he was taken up into heaven. You know, I've noticed like a lot of like the Native American lore in this country, at least, had talk about the sky gods in the past too, right? So. And, you know, we're going to get to Ezekiel a little bit later as we're talking about like the real UFO stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But but he there's a it's not part of the it's not canon to the Bible, but it was left out. It's the Book of Enoch. You're familiar with the Book of Enoch, right?
Yes.
So but the Book of Enoch goes into more detail about the Watchers, right? So who are the Watchers?
The Watchers, I believe that's going into the sons of God. And so, for instance, in John 1:1, when it starts talking about the creation of the earth, and this is where like a big kind of fight goes along with the different beliefs as far as Trinitarians, Unitarians, and basically that's just, you know, kind of fancy words for saying people that believe that God is 3 in 1, Father, Son, and Spirit. Some people who believe that, no, he is God, and then he just put his spirit into a mortal man on earth, and it goes into these different understandings. But if you go into the actual translations, what it says there, going back into like the Aramaic or the Hebrew, it literally says that, I'm trying to remember the Elohim or Elohim, which is plural for powers or gods. And so that's referencing, that would encompass the angels, that would encompass demons, that would encompass God, that would encompass, sons, that would encompass people who have a sense of power, in a sense, mostly referring to people within the spiritual realm. So when it starts talking about that, when it's talking, there's a part where he talks about that when he's divided the nations and given them their inheritance, he put sons of God above them. Well, that translates into Watchers or Nephilim, or I feel like what people call the Anunnaki. Like all of that, I feel is the different representation or understanding of that from different cultures outside of the so-called Hebrew Bible.
Right on. And so like I said, I am a very, very surface level information kind of person when it comes to this kind of stuff in the Bible. So just kind of like in the nutshell, so you had these angels, right, who came down and fathered children with the women of Earth, right, and they gave birth to. Or how does that work?
That's where I would stop it in my understanding. It's not that it was necessarily angels coming down and having sexual relations with people, or even like in the sense when they talk about the Nephilim, thinking that they're half god creatures. Because if you think about even just the dimensions, let's just think practical for a moment. Are we gonna have like literally, the Jolly Green Giant, having sex with a 4-foot woman? I mean, that just doesn't make sense.
Oh, Green Giant. Oh yeah,
exactly.
I got a green bean for you, lady.
Exactly.
You.
So that's where I'm like, come on, people, that doesn't even make sense. And the Book of Enoch, what it does is, the Book of Enoch, the reason why for one, there's a lot of things which cut against the Book of Enoch. For one, it contradicts with different things in the Bible. So anything that starts contradicting with canon of the Bible, it's a little worrisome. Even if you say, okay, well, fine, I don't care if it contradicts, that I still could take it more credible. Well, the problem is writing styles. Once you start getting into writing styles, you can tell that the writing style that it is representing, it comes from a writing style which starts around the 1800s. So it's to show that that is something that is being manufactured, that is written later. Also, when they found these is even much later than that. We're talking about like the 1950s when these were actually found. And so I think that this is going into early Gnosticism and Gnostic, because there were people who had Gnostic beliefs going back far, far and long. And so I think that this was a manufacturing. Now, not to say everything in the Book of Enoch is wrong. There's some stuff in there that's correct. But in order for you to have any good work of fiction or anything, you got to have some elements of truth in there.
Mm-hmm. And why was it? Was it because of those contradictions? That's why it was left out of the Bible.
Well, it was. There wasn't. Okay, I want to make sure I make this declaration. There was an actual Book of Enoch that was a part of the Bible. That Book of Enoch that was left out of the Bible is because the ancient manuscripts, which they used to decide, okay, this is going in the Bible or not going in the Bible, there wasn't enough of them. So it would have been like literally maybe one sentence that they would have put in there that would not have made enough sense to what was even being talked about. That's why it was left out. So the fact of how they took this one sentence or a couple of sentences and turned this into a whole, chapters and chapters, and starts talking about mermaids and half man, half goats, and some of that stuff, I'm like, I don't know about all that.
All right.
And
so
another thing, when it starts talking about, it talks about, was it Enoch being born, and he comes, or Noah being born, and it says white as the angels. Well, in the Bible, nowhere does it say the angels are white. It describes them in various different ways, but it never describes them the way it describes Noah in the Bible, basically saying he's an albino and that he had these bright eyes and all this stuff. That doesn't add up with what the Bible says.
Well, I mean, a lot of and back in the times too, people were getting a lot of visions and stuff like that. Mostly from like hallucinatory type things too. Maybe now I'm not discounting how the power of prayer and meditation and that kind of, levitation of the mind to the spirit in that sense. But, what really interests me though is the fact that, so you have like Enoch, who was a real person, right? So he was like was he the great grandfather of Noah? I think he's the father of Methuselah, right? I'm not Methuselah.
I'd have to have, no, not Methuselah. But he is. I got my Bible right here.
Who's the guy that lives? Who's the guy that lives?
I'm trying to remember where he was as far as the genealogy, but
I thought it was the guy who was he was the oldest man who ever lived. Wasn't that Methuselah?
Well, back in that time, a lot of them lived a very, very long periods of time.
Yeah,
there was a lot of people who were living extremely long lifeline. I mean, where it'd be unfathomable today.
Right, we're talking hundreds of years, even thousands of years in some cases. I mean, depending on which.
900 years.
Right. I think that's what Methuselah was, right? I think Methuselah was like 900 and something years, something like that.
Like 960 or something crazy like that.
But what happened though?
Like people, if Jose's in the chat, Jose, please correct me or find the info, put it in the chat.
But I mean, so, but what happened? How did I think there's a verse, and I'm not quite sure which verse this is, that said that you will live to be 120 years old, right? Yeah. And there maybe a handful of people in the past century maybe have cracked 110, something like that in our lifetimes, right? In the modern age. So how, in your opinion, how did we go from living hundreds of years way back then to like maybe making it to 70, 80, 90 on average these days?
Well, there's a two-form answer. One, I could go, and for your audience purposes, I'll go with the secular one first. One, because of some of the things that people started doing, it started to make it harder for you to be healthier longer. That's one way if you don't believe in the Bible. But according to biblically, this was something that the Most High decreed on man, that, you know what, you guys have been just too wicked all over the place. There's too much murder. There's too much robbery. There's just too much things that go against the world which I wanted for you all. So I'm going to limit your lifespan so that you don't continue to do this wickedness longer.
Right on. Okay. And plus they probably didn't have high fructose corn syrup back in the days too. So,
but you have more eating like for instance, in Leviticus, when it starts talking about the dietary laws and things that you're not supposed to eat, in those days, if you were eating some of those things, like for instance, when it talks about pig, if you were eating the swine or pork, a lot of times they did have a lot of different parasites that were in it,
right?
That could be very, very dangerous and toxic and kill you. Which it doesn't mean that it completely has gotten rid of them all today. I mean, you still could get some bad meat, and it will still have some of those things in it. But at that time, that was something that was, hey, I'm telling you guys to stay away from this because I already know what's in it. This stuff is all bad for you. It is going to shorten your life. That's just like in the Garden of Eden when it says, don't eat this lest you die. The serpent is like, yeah, go on ahead, don't worry about it, you're not going to die. Well, you might not just drop right over and die instantly, but it's the same thing as if you had a diet full of high sodium. That is going to kill you. It's not going to kill you tomorrow, but it's going to kill you.
Right. It's kind of a trade-off because you didn't have like a lot of preservatives and stuff. Like salt was mostly the preservative back in, like, even up until maybe a couple hundred years ago, before we started getting like refrigeration and then in modern times started, putting all this, poison crap that's in there to preserve
But
stuff too. So,
but you can balance that off because they drank a lot more water and clean water back then. So you're able
right.
to dilute that salt, whereas we don't dilute that salt now.
Right. We're sitting here putting sodas in our bodies and a lot of coffee and stuff like that technically has water, but it has all that other crap in it too. So
Yeah, that strips the minerals out of your body.
exactly. So it's kind of I would love to know the secret of living 900 and something years old. But at the same time, in living in the times that we live in today, I'd be like, ooh, I don't know, man. If I got to spend 900 years of this bullshit, ooh, can I get
Well,
like
you got
half
to
of
remember,
that?
you're dealing with a time period. Even if you don't go to the full 900, if you go to the years of when they were living to 120 years old, a 120-year-old was in the physical prowess of somebody that was like in their 50s now. I
Yeah.
mean, they were still working, walking tons of miles, maybe even agricultural, sheep herding, doing all those different things. So, that old saying, if you don't use it, you lose it. That's kind of goes into that. These societies that we live in now actually deteriorate our bodies faster than, a more agrarian society where you're actually physically using your body.
All right, let's get back to the weird shit because that's what these folks. That's what these folks paid their dime for to get in the building. So, so in Genesis, it talks about we were talking about the Nephilim, right? So I mean, were these giants? Were these actual giants?
Yes.
I mean, are we talking like 30-foot giants? Are we talking about like 8-foot giants? I mean, what kind of giants are we talking about?
Now, just for sake of argument, because I'm one of those people where I leave possibility, that margin of error for about anything. I don't see, from what I understand, for that to be the case. I kind of lean towards like a Dr. Michael Heiser, who he would go into and saying that, yes, it would have been common that when they're talking about these giants, talking about people who are maybe 8 feet tall, maybe 9 feet tall, maybe even a little taller than that. We're talking about maybe even up to 10 or 11 feet, possibly. That would be really stretching it. But you got to remember, the average man back in that time was like literally a little bit over 5 foot. Women
Right.
were on average about 4.5 foot tall. And so if you got somebody who's 8 foot tall, 9 foot tall, with somebody who's 4 foot, 5 foot tall, that's a giant to them.
Well, I mean, even today, I mean, it's what is the world's record holder is like 8 foot something. This guy from I
Was it
think
8
from
foot
like
6 or something?
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but I think he was like from the 30s or something like that. He was just I think he may have been American or English. I'm not sure. I know he was a white dude, but he was like he was like the record holder, and but you see like a lot of these discoveries in these archaeological digs. Now, granted, you can throw some skepticism into some of these discoveries that they've made, but it has been reported that like giant bones have been found like all over the world. I mean, what do you make of those kind of things, those discoveries?
Well, those kind of discoveries, part of me is like wondering, like, okay, that could be, could be something that's just missed or not necessarily talked about, or were those giants even considered like a normal human being, or they almost akin more to an animal, which was outside of the society? And is that what the Bible was talking about when it was talking about those Nephilim, those types of giants, or was it just giants of men within society? And then part of me wonders, how much of that could be, a hoax, because there is a lot of
Right.
archaeological stuff which people will plant this and create that just to get their name out there. I think about how many Native American artifacts, which there is probably maybe a good 60 to 70% of them that are solid, but you do got a ton of fakes out there. And so I
Yeah.
wonder how much of that is fakes. And then you do have people which come to other theories. What is it like? I think it's like Mud House University or something like that, and they came to the conclusions that these giants that were like 30 foot, 40 foot, they actually became mountains and stuff like that. Which I don't know how much I hold to that, but I mean there are those theories out there, which unless I could definitively be able to concretely, dismiss it, then I won't put my feet down and argue, vehemently against something like that.
Yeah. I'm fascinated with that kind of stuff. I liken those kind of discoveries and stuff like that to UFO sightings, because like 90-something% of UFO sightings are either explainable or fake. It's that, that very small fraction that they cannot explain. And that's, you could probably apply that to a lot of these discoveries too. With when it comes to giants and that sort of thing. So, and you made an interesting point earlier when you were talking about how these beings that came down and fathered these children with human women, and you're like, how the hell is this going to happen? This little shorty and this big dude, So this is probably where you and I are just gonna split paths here, because you're, like you said, you're more of the historical, theological, like based in like the facts that and I'm heading to Fringe City, right?
I have a certain degree of looking at things more in how logical and how probable this is. Like, and I don't think a lot of people realize this, that me as being a person who is a historian and kind of more I guess pseudo theologian. I didn't go to an official college for theology, but I've definitely studied a lot of theology most of my life, going into the different so-called mythologies, and even some of the different tribal stuff. I've done a lot of studying in theology just in general over the last 25 years or so, and so there is a lot that I do know about, and I've always tried to figure out the practicality of this. How does this feasibly work? But I do dabble, and I do enjoy, and entertained by, the stuff like the X-Files and the Twilight Zones and this crazy mind-breaking stuff. I do enjoy it.
Hey, Miguel, it's good to see you. Miguel joining us in the chat here. So, well, the reason I mentioned that is because, I'm one of these cats that I probably within the last 20 years started really getting more into like the fringe kind of stuff, your David Icke's, right? I mentioned David Icke to some people and they go, ooh, David Icke, everything sounds great till you get to the lizard people. And it's like, oh no, man, what are you going to do to the lizard people? You were so good, man. What happened? So, but like, so when I think about the history of our human race, I listen, I'll watch shows and listen to lectures and stuff by Graham Hancock too. I don't know if you agree or disagree with a lot of other things he says, but to think that maybe that there was a prior civilization to the one that we have now kind of intrigues me, and basically like how are we the humans, are we indigenous to this planet? Are we from somewhere else? Were we brought here? Did we seed the planet? That kind of thing. Was there genetic manipulation in the past too? Right? Like there's theories by fringe scientists and theorists that talk about the Garden of Eden being a lab, right? Where Adam and Eve were created. Right from so and then you kind of
getting into inking a little and stuff like that.
Right. And I know you're not down with the Anunnaki and stuff like that, but I'm just saying.
What's his name? Something Carson or whatever. That's kind of in his realm.
I think so. I know
Billy Carson. That's
it. Oh, Billy Carson. Okay. I think maybe Zachariah Sitchin mentioned that when he was in his what he claimed to be his interpretations of the Sumerian cuneiform texts too. So,
Mhm.
like I said, pinch of salt, suspend your disbelief if you have to, if you want going for the entertainment value, like a lot of times, because we're never going to be able to prove any of this stuff
Yeah.
unless you got a time machine and we can actually go back and document it. All we can do is theorize and hypothesize about this kind of stuff, which is half the fun, right? Because you're not really hurting
Yeah.
anything when you're just kind of talking about it. So
Yeah, you're not hurting anybody. Well, this is what I will tie in and say to that, though. I believe the Bible does allude to a so-called society before that. I mean, you talk about the days of Noah.
really,
Noah was literally talking, to the people and telling them, "Yo, a flood is coming," and and nobody wanted to listen to him because, according to the Bible, in those days it had not rained before. So the concept of rain just seemed crazy to people. Um, and if you go into even some of the deeper breakdowns of the earlier books of Genesis, when it starts talking about the creation story, it starts talking about all living creatures being made on the fifth day. Well, Christianity teaches all living creatures are made on the sixth day when it starts talking about Adam and Eve. Our understanding is that is the creation of other societies, because even when you get into Cain and Abel, when Cain kills his brother Abel, Cain is cast out, and he's told to, go to this other town. Well, wait a minute. If it's only supposed to be Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel, why is there a whole nother town here? Why is there a whole nother city? How is he going to go get a wife over here? And so that's why we say it definitely lends to the argument. When you read the text, it literally says living creature, and you go down through the definitions. One of the definitions of a living creature is a human being. And so
yeah,
for us, we believe man was created on the fifth day, and that's when you started having different societies and all that. And when it starts talking about Adam and Eve, it's just talking about a particular group, and he's like, yo, I'm dealing with you guys. I've already created deities for all these other people. So when you start seeing these similarities between what might be in Hindu, what you might see through Norse mythology, what you see through Greek mythology and the Greek pantheons, and Roman mythology, all these different things like that, we believe that that's like, I'll speak for myself, that these different cultures, this is them saying, you know what, no, this is our version of it. Our God, he's the one at the top, and this is the pantheon of all these other gods, and they're worshiping all of the gods, versus the Hebrew Bible, where you don't worship all those other gods. Those other gods are said to be appointed over those particular areas and regions and things like that. But this is your God. This is who you follow. This is your power. And so that's where we see, that. And so the flood story would have been those earlier societies living and going through life and doing what they were doing. And through him seeing enough, evils and wickedness on the earth, he decided, okay, got to wipe all this stuff away, got to get rid of this. It's just too badly corrupted. And for those who don't believe like the flood story, there's archaeologists that will attest to, I'm trying to remember, actually, I could send it to you. I just looked up I got a little short that I'm gonna send you, where
ooh,
there are what are they? I'm trying to remember what they're called. Not geologists. Can't remember what they're called, but they are literally archaeologists,
yeah.
and how they show. Hang on one second. Let me get it and then send it to you. And it's just a quick short, so it won't take long. Man, I watch a lot of stuff. Okay, there it is. Save and share. And so I'm DMing it to you right now.
Were you putting it
And
in
so
Twitter or in
to your
the?
Twitter. And
Okay.
so it gives some compelling arguments for somebody to who I mean doesn't believe it's possible that happened. Then there's some questions that I have over here for him. And then also, just I remember when I was first looking into it, they were talking about sediment layers, and you could tell, high levels of water in different areas. Also, the fact of all the way around the world, everywhere you go in the mountaintops, you literally have sea life. You have fish, you have sharks, you have whale bones all through mountaintops all over the world. And it's like somebody has explained that part for me. Why is there whales in the top of these mountains if there was no kind of water or flooding? Or I don't know, maybe you guys believe that. I don't know what other theories people have, but it begs some questions.
Well, let's take a look at this that you sent here. We're looking at a place in western Montana called Camas Prairie. So let me just reload that.
We're looking at a place in western Montana called Camas Prairie, and you're going to notice down here a series of ripples. We're seeing rippled landscape. So
Rippled landscape that looks exactly like the beach looks.
That's the thing. This happens at a scale of inches on beaches and a scale of hundreds of feet here.
And there's a farmhouse. Now those ripples, the tallest ones are about the height of a 5-story building. See this one, Graham? This is the West Bar. And there's an airport down. The lighter colored buff stuff is a landing strip. And the airport building there is 3 stories tall.
We can see it on any beach. How water flows receding across a sandy medium will produce ripples. But here, they're on this unbelievable scale where they're hundreds of feet long and 50 feet high, where they dwarf houses. So what that tells us is that a huge water flow went across this plain.
Here what you have to visualize is a tsunami sweeping over the land that's over 1,000 feet deep.
We are dealing with the largest flood that ever occurred on Earth. This is the fingerprints of the flood.
Wow.
We're looking at a place.
I am so glad you brought that up, because I was watching. I watched this thing with Graham Hancock, who was in that video, and I can't remember the other gentleman's name right off the top of my head, but they were talking about 13. Well, they were talking about 13,000 years ago, how the floods were created during the Younger Dryas period, right? And they were talking about how an ice shelf was ice sheets had covered like half of North America at that time, right? And that what they were to summarize what they were talking about on Rogan is that these like meteor strikes had hit these ice sheets that had like these giant freshwater lakes and stuff like that in them too, because they were so huge, and that was what had caused these floods across the world, right? Or at least, but I mean, like, when they're talking about the flood in the Bible, they're talking about the known world at the time, right? They're not talking about the entirety of the world, are they?
Well, I believe in that time period. I'd have to double check off the top of my head, but I mean, in the Bible, it alludes to Pangea also. You know, it talks about in the time before Peleg, where the earth got divided after the days of Peleg, and so it was all one for the most part. And you can even see, if you look at it, you can see how the continents can match up together almost like puzzle pieces to allude to continental drift. And people still talk about to this day that you can measure continental drift. And so at some point, if they drifted far apart, well, why couldn't they have already been together at a point? And so that would make sense to how you would have, a flood, a continental flood like that was over on one major supercontinent. And then you start factoring in, literally, you could say, well, I don't believe the Bible. Well, even outside of the Bible, there's so many cultures that literally have a flood story. Why would everybody all have the same flood story? And of course, it's a little bit different from person to person. But if you're living in one region and this people are living in another region and you guys are all explaining stuff, it's going to affect your region slightly differently. But the fact that you guys all have the same story, even if you go into a lot of Native American creation stories, it talks about the whole thing being covered with water, and certain ones, and that having to dive below to try to find a area of dry land that they could bring up and then create land onto, and the whole Turtle Island mythology. And so that goes into some of these different stories that maybe isn't the same as the flood story, but that's showing, okay, well, they're talking about all this water here, and Earth had to be brought up for the water to create land masses. So to me, it all kind of ties into some kind of belief in that there had to be some kind of flood or just massive water everywhere at some point in time.
They mention in Anunnaki mythology too about the flood too, and I believe I can't remember the name, but Noah is named something else in Anunnaki mythology, but it's the same story that he's given prior knowledge that this flood is coming, that he needs to build like this boat, you know. Okay, so all right, so I'm kind of getting ahead of myself because I want to go back to Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel, where basically Cain murdered a quarter of the planet, if you think about it. So
yeah,
right,
yeah.
and there was only 4 of them. You know, Adam and Eve.
Yeah, according to mythology.
You know, my Adam and Eve has got to be like, dude, there was only 4 of us, and and she's the only chick. What are you doing? You know, I'm pretty sure that I'm paraphrasing what they said at the time. I'm sure it's a little bit more thee, thou, and well, although that's like Old English, but we'll anyway, sidebar. But so, okay, so let's talk about so they go to this town, right? And see, that's what I don't get. It's like, if they're the first people, then who are these other people? And why are they referenced, or why are they called, like, God created Adam and Eve? Okay, but does that mean he only created Adam and Eve? Right? No. I mean, because there's no other references to these other people besides them going to this town, right? I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, I think what it is, and then this is what Christianity misses, because they believe that it's only those 4 people that were being created on the 6th day. Whereas, like I said, we teach that man was created on the 5th day. And so he decided that, okay, this is going to be my particular nation, which I want to follow after my guidelines. And if you follow this is kind of a cheat code that you're going to be healthier than all these other people. This is going to help you build a society. This is going to help you have law and order in a sense. This is going to help you avoid a lot of the problems which man who's on the 5th day, which they are running into or running that they're having. I mean, and so I believe that, yes, it definitely alludes to that this society was there before. And then even in some of the different translations or understandings that we get when it talks about the serpent, beguiling Eve, it's not literally talking about a serpent. Some people internalize it that way. We believe that that is what they were calling a group of those people who were there, that they were calling them serpent-like people who were trying to trick them and run them into their belief systems. And so through running into their belief systems, that's when they're like, oh, well, now you're naked, because now you're not covered by my word, by the way that you're supposed to live. Now you're following after this idolatry, and you're following these other belief systems, which is going to lead you to death.
I'm about to say you were venturing into David Icke territory with the lizard people there when he was talking about, the serpent people. So I'm like, all right, we'll go there too. All right, so Rick in the chat.
It does say when you start getting into to later books or whatever, it starts talking about, and that old serpent. And so that old serpent that it starts talking about in the beginning is talking about that old serpent at the end also.
And also the fact that we have a lizard part of our brain too. So there's like, that's kind of an interesting thing. Rick in the chat's been chomping at the bit. He wants to know about Lilith. What do you know about Lilith?
I remember I studied a lot about Lilith. There was a period when I was before I came to the belief system I have now, where I was dabbling a lot into Gnosticism. And Lilith goes into Gnosticism. And for those who are not familiar with Lilith, Lilith is alleged to be Adam's first wife. And basically, Lilith didn't want to submit to Adam. And so therefore, they kind of feuded. Lilith went off on her own. And then the angels, and I think that this might be in the book of Enoch, I'm not sure, or the book of Jasher or Jubilee, I'm not sure which one. I've read all of them. But the angels are sent out to go and bring Lilith back. And because Lilith doesn't want to be brought back, she's cursed into being like half woman, like half eagle, or something like, or half owl. And so a lot of times when you see in this Masonic stuff and they're giving worship to the owl and stuff like that, that's supposed to be translated back to Lilith and her defiance of the angels and not wanting to be back with Adam. And so they also say that that leads into, when you start talking about the succubus and all kind of other different kind of demonic entities, they say that they trace back to Lilith. And even some Gnostic traditions or teachings way into Solomon, when Solomon was following after all the different gods of his wives, which for those who don't know, Solomon had a shitload of wives. Solomon's wives believed in all these different things, and it's believed that that tied him, that opened him up to dealing with actual, breaking into the fourth dimension and dealing with actual demons, which do cede power over people and control people and things like that. So I don't know, there's a little long-winded explanation, but yeah, that's a little bit about Lilith.
Well, the good thing California hadn't been invented back then, because Adam would have lost half his shit in the divorce. And anytime I hear Lilith, I always think, what, you talking about Fraser Crane's ex-wife? What the hell? Is that Lilith?
Well, she's kind of evil, like Lilith is described.
I like that. I don't know. I had to throw in my Frasier reference, so I apologize for that. Straying from the path, as it were. So yeah, Lilith is another. I mean, isn't there like a whole book of Lilith that tells the story about her? That's one of the books that was like left out of the Bible too.
I'm not sure if there's an actual book of Lilith, but there is writings that talk about Lilith in different other cultures. And
Okay.
I believe that also a lot of people believe that Lilith ties into some of the different mother god worship when you start, tracing down to Madonna, Diana, forgetting a couple of different names there, Ashtoreth, what's another one? Ashtoreth, Semiramis, all of these different, mother gods are all supposedly, some kind of derivation off of Lilith.
I can just imagine
Artemis, that's the one I forgot.
Artemis. I can just imagine Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, they're both naked, and Lilith rolls up with like this rock t-shirt that says, bitches don't care, or something like that. It's like, oh, who's this? You found somebody new quick, didn't you, Adam, is it? Okay, so we just, all right, all you Lilith fans, just cool your jets, all right? Moving on here. We have a lot to cover here, so, okay, so, now you mentioned Noah and the flood. So, is the boat a figurative thing, or was it do you think it was an actual literal, like he literally built this boat and put all these animals on there? I mean, what's your interpretation of that?
I would say that he literally didn't go out and grab two of every single animal, but he probably grabbed, of the certain breeds of kinds, or because if you notice, even not very long ago in human history, like dogs, there was like only like basically one breed of dog. I mean, and so you start to see like some of these animals can breed into other species of animals. And so I believe it's very possible. Okay, you got a couple of dogs. Okay, you got a couple of monkeys. You'd have to get every single type of monkey, but you get what I'm saying? You got a couple of horses. It wasn't like literally going to get every single animal, every single different species. But also you can look up Noah's Ark on Mount Ararat, and a lot of archaeologists have been digging that out. And this ship structure, which you see on Mount Ararat, actually matches a lot of the dimensions of what they said Noah's Ark would have been. And you can see different types of metal that was used within that structure, that you could tell that this was a structure that somebody did build at some point in time. And it interestingly matches the cubits and dimensions of what it said Noah's Ark would have been.
All right. So once again, your path, me on fringe. Okay. So when I think of, I'm totally always going to go there because that's my only point of reference that I know that I even have any relevance in my brain to. So I'm thinking of like the Ark, right? I'm thinking of like the seed vault that's in what Greenland, I think, or Iceland. You know, like this thing that is. You know what I'm saying? Where they have all these seeds in here to, in case when the apocalypse hits, and it's coming, they got all these seeds ready to go. So to me, like, once again, I'm thinking like a lot of this stuff in the Bible is influenced by some sort of advanced technology that the people at the time just didn't understand. So now let me preface that with this story.
I agree to a degree, but I'll let you finish. I'm going to try to look up a picture of that real quick to send to you. But sorry.
Oh, please do. Okay, so I'm not quite sure where it was, but during World War II, there was an island out in the Pacific that the United States used as a landing strip and a refueling area, right? So they had there was natives on this island that had never seen people from anywhere in the world, right? They were the only ones that they knew of that existed, right? So all of a sudden the Americans come in their big boats and their planes, and these people just didn't understand all of this technology, right? So and then the troops, they gave them food and stuff like that, and then once the war was over, they left. But after they left, the people on this island fashioned this monument, almost like an idol, to them, and it was basically this plane that they had built out of like bamboo and stuff like that, and it was just something that it was almost, I don't know if it was a worship thing, but it was more of like they didn't understand the technology. So and I think back then, it's like, what if, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that extraterrestrial life could have visited the Earth in those days, right? I mean, if you believe in extraterrestrial life. Now, if you don't, then you're probably going to say, well, that's horseshit. There's no ETs. None of that happened. It is what it is. But, what if that was the situation? So maybe like the Ark could have been something that kept the DNA of certain animals and stuff like that, or it could have been like an actual thing with animals, but it was regional animals, like you said. Noah's not going to go all the way halfway around the world to get some, the Tasmanian devil or something like that to put on the boat, right? That's not going to happen. So I would assume, being more practical, that it was more of like he grabbed as many regional animals that he could, so that there would be some for after the flood. But that's another thing too. It's like, okay, the flood happens, wipes everybody off the earth except for Noah and his family. So now the population that are we, I guess technically we would be descendants of Adam and Eve, because Noah was a descendant of Adam and Eve. Everybody was, right? Right.
Most people don't get that, but yeah.
Right, the OGs that everybody forgets about, Noah's on the boat pouring one out for his dead homies, back in the day. So, but yeah, it's like, it's just hard for people to wrap their minds around the fact that the 7 billion people that we have on the planet came from this very small group of people. Now, let me ask you this. Okay, so let's just take this literally for a second. Like, literally, the population of the world came from this group of people, right? So in those 8 people, so in those days, the longevity of people was like pretty long, right? I mean, how old did Noah live to be?
I would have to say Noah, I think, was like 900 or something like that.
Right. Okay.
I'm a little foggy on that.
It's okay.
Let me look it up.
More than the standard of what we have.
950.
950. All right, 950 for Noah, right? And probably his brood maybe in the 800s, 700s, whatever. Longer than 100 All right. Okay. So when I came to the conclusions that with 8 people, you're going to have inbreeding, right? So wouldn't you think that inbreeding would have some sort of degenerative effect on your longevity as a human? I mean, maybe like the next generation that may have been incestually conceived, maybe they still live to be like 200 or 300, but not 700, 800. And then the next generation is like 150. And then the next generation is like 130, and then you go down the line and down the line, and here you are today, we're living to be 70, 80 years old, right? I mean, do you think that might be?
That's a good theory. That's a good theory because the descendants would have been more than they would have been first cousins starting off of that first group, which would have been doing the breeding after that. And then down to second and third cousins. So yeah, the first couple of groups would make sense that would diminish the population or diminish the age. Oh, I sent you that picture of Mount Ararat also, and there's more of it too, but just one. There's one that I thought was pretty clear. I mean, there's all kind of documentaries about this thing.
All right. Okay, so here we go. Let me oh no, don't go back. Okay, let me see if I can just blow this up a little bit. So this is Mount. Go back. Okay, so this is Mount.
The beginning is kind of like the shape of the front of a bow, and then it kind of wraps back around. Like they went in and done samples, and they were able to go, okay, metal piece here, metal piece here, metal piece here. Being able to tell that, okay, this part has a metal beam that wrapped around here and going all the way through it. And they've excavated a little bit of it to be able to see, yes, this is actually what's down here. This is wood on top of this type of wood, on top of that type of wood, this metal on top of that metal, and designed into that way. So you could tell that was something that was man-made completely.
Yeah. You can kind of see like a form to it. Yeah, like you said, like a boat. Yeah. Like down here to the bottom right, you have your front of your ship, and I'm not a Navy person, so I don't know aft, stern, bow, that sort of thing. The front, the bow, the bow, the front of the boat, and then you go back towards it. But look at those clean lines like that on the ridges there. Very, very clean. I mean, that could lend something to that. So, it's just fascinating stuff like that. So,
and I mean, there's and a lot of the people who've done this research are not Bible believers. A lot of these people are flat out atheists who have studied this stuff. I'm like, well, there's something to that. I mean, it's the same thing when you look at what do they call it, the real Mount Sinai. When you look and you have the burnt tips at the top of the mountain. It's like, well, how did this whole top of this mountaintop get completely scorched? I mean, what happened here? Was it just like 50 lightning strikes all at the same place at the same time? I mean, I don't know how this happened.
Jimmy, I think Jimmy thinks she's in trouble. She says, no, if Noah's Ark is real, that means God is real, and that means heaven is real, which means I'm a fucking sinner and I'm going to hell.
Well, we don't believe in the concept of hell the way that it's divine in Christianity. I'll just put that out there.
I would say that we're living in hell right now, to be honest with you. So, but
he gets it. Yes, he gets it. This is a version of hell. Yes,
it does get a little warm, and I don't have air conditioner. So,
if you do the definition of what hell is, hell translates back to the word Sheol, which Sheol means the grave. And so hell is the grave or a condition of being in a lowered state or a negative state, or Jesse Peters like to call it a fallen state. So when you're going through, I mean, think about it, even, parabolically, Jonah was saying when he was in the mouth of the giant fish that he was in hell for 3 days. His condition was horrible. Not saying that he's literally somewhere where his flesh is burning off and then coming back and then burning off and then coming back for an eternity. And then he's going to be plucked out of that place, be given a judgment, and then possibly sent back to be burning and then reflesh and then burned and reflesh. No, that goes into like Dante's Inferno and into Greek mythology, you know, the whole concept of hell, which we have. And if you understand like the track of what started happening when you had the Israelites and they were dealing with the Greeks, there was a lot of what they call Hellenization, and so that was adopting of Greek traditions, Greek beliefs, and so that mixture started creeping into the Bible, and I believe that led on also when it got into the Roman Empire, and that's the reason why the Catholic Church kind of push for more of that hell version, and that's the reason why they have a hard time describing heaven. And they just say, "Oh, well, you know, we got thousands of mansions up in the cloud somewhere."
Yeah, right. Yeah, the old guy sitting on the throne, the pearly gates, the streets of gold, that sort of thing. I have my own kind of theory or hypothesis about like heaven and hell. And I want to do a whole show about death at some point too, you know, like what people consider the afterlife and that sort of thing. Cause I was talking to my oldest sister. She's an evangelical Christian and, very, you know, very learned in the Bible. But, she asked me if I believed in a heaven or hell. I said, well, if you're asking me when I die, is it going to be a fiery pit with the devil and the pitchfork and stuff like that? Or if there's the guy on the chair in the sky, I don't believe that. But I do believe that we have a soul energy, right? I think our real selves use these meat sacks to move around in, right? To do things that we need to do. But the soul energy is the real essence of who we are. And so when you die, it's like Einstein said, energy can neither be created nor destroyed, right? So that energy's got to go somewhere, right? And then looking back at what the Bible lessons tell us about, like, I'm just very generalizing here, but saying like being a good person, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, you know, just charging your soul with positive energy, right? Your soul is just like anything else. It could have a positive charge, it could have a negative charge, right? So if your soul is positively charged, when you die, that soul energy leaves your body, enters the universe, and joins the realm of positive energy that's in the universe. And at the same time, if your soul is negatively charged, you know, by comparison, your negative energy would flow into, be attracted to negative energy that's in the universe. I know it's a very generic kind of way of looking at it, but you know, if we are energy.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you go ahead. No, go ahead.
No. I was going to say that's not too. I don't think that's really too bad of a flaw. I don't think that's a really flawed understanding. I mean, kind of what we teach in a sense is that good, bad, or ugly, until the last days, everybody when they die, their spirit goes back to where it came from, goes back to the Creator. It will go back to the Father. You will, when they say rest in peace, you are literally in nothingness. There's and until the end point, until like you're brought back, and that goes into another topic. I'm sure we might bring it up, talking about regeneration, where your spirit does go somewhere, and then your spirit does come back, and things go in cycles. And so it's not a complete end necessarily. So therefore, that energy does go somewhere. This body perishes and goes away, and then another body comes along, and that spirit is being brought back. And so, I mean, we can get into the beliefs of regeneration and stuff, but no, I do think you're entirely correct with that understanding that energy is not destroyed or gone away. It does go somewhere, but it's not, literally sitting in front of. Now, it could be a possibility that you do sit before the Father and he weighs you out and decides this and that. But when we come back to this earth, we come back as babies, so we don't remember anything anyway. And you can tell us when we get older, we start forgetting, kind of going into a form of the slate being wiped clean again for us to start all over.
Now we could talk about like regeneration and reincarnation and stuff like that. I would just want to sit down with you and just talk about that all night for a session if you want to. So, but we got to get to the other stuff here because we got more Bible goodies to get to. So now let's talk about the angels. Okay, so I managed to now when people talk about the angels. Or like a lot of people who are just kind of like your garden variety folks don't really, know too much about the Bible, but they pretty much know what angels are, at least in their mind, right?
Or their purpose.
Right. And at least if they don't know the purpose, they kind of know what they look like. They either describe them as like, adults with wings, like human looking adults, or like babies with, cherubs with wings. So that kind of thing. But so I found this and I wanted to get your take on this. So we have the different kinds of angels that are listed here. And
like the cherubims and the seraphims and,
Yeah,
okay, yeah.
So you've got, so you have the seraphim, the cherubim, the thrones, dominions, powers, virtues, principalities, archangels, and angels. So what I want to focus on is
which I would say for the most part they would look very there we go. Some of them
the seraphim and the thrones, right? Yes, the seraphim and the thrones is what freaks me out. This one giant eye. Right. I mean, the cherubim with the lion, was it the lion and the bull and the eagle head too? And the lady, that's a little out there too, but Well,
and then eyes within their wings and stuff like that.
Yeah. Right. But what about the thrones? What's up with the thrones? That looks like alien. That looks very alien. Whoa. What do you think?
And I'm glad you brought this up because I feel like aliens is the secular community's way to explain angels. Now, when people are talking about UFOs and aliens, when we look at that as no, you guys are actually talking about spiritual beings and the vehicles basically of these angelic beings. And so that doesn't mean that all the angels are good. You do have demonic angels, what we call right wing or left wing angels, where some of these are demons, are classified as demons, but technically all of them are angels. They all work for the same person, because there's a little bit of scripture where he says, I do good, I do evil, and that's God telling you he does all the good, he does all the evil. It's honestly, we're all in a big giant movie, and we're all playing parts. And so your part might be to be the person who is, you run a business. Your role might be the person who's at the bottom of society, who's struggling out. You might be the revolutionary. You might be the cop. You're the average. You get what I'm saying? We all have a role that we're playing. And it's only him that knows what we're playing and where our beginning and where our end is going. And so therefore, these so-called angels that people see, or aliens that they see, we believe that these are actually angelic beings.
Right on. I mean, okay, so let me go back to this for a second. So the thrones one is the one, it seems like kind of what was described in Ezekiel, right? Because it seems like it's round, and the wheels, they kind of mention like wheels within wheels.
Wheels within the wheels, yeah.
So do you think he saw like an extraterrestrial craft, or did he see an angel?
I think he saw an extraterrestrial craft. That's what I believe that he was seeing, because he talks about watching its movement. And then you go into verses where it even talks about Enoch. We talked about earlier how Enoch is lifted up into a cloud. There's the three wise men, when it talks about the three wise men are following the cloud to find, the birth of the child. There is after the death and burial of Christ, it talks about how he goes up in a cloud. It talks about how when he returns, he'll come back with 10,000s and thousands of his clouds. And so we believe that that's what that's alluding to, and that might be the possibility. And so a lot of times in these movies and entertainment, when we're seeing these UFOs, I'll just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off instead of, tiptoeing with it. A lot of the people who run Hollywood and who are funding these movies, literally their background comes from studying in Hebrew school and the Hebrew Bible and things like that. And I do believe that we're seeing that bleed off into our entertainment. Perfect example. You guys all know this song, this "Live Long and Prosperous," Leonard Nimoy.
Right.
Yeah, he learned that from I believe some kind of ceremony that he was seeing in Hebrew school.
This is
Yeah, for those who don't know, he's Jewish or was Jewish.
He was Jewish, yes. Actually, I have a friend of mine who's his cousin. So, very, very, very Jewish family. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's something that rabbinic rabbis do during certain prayers.
That is crazy. That if you don't know and you see somebody doing that, you're like, hey, you like Star Trek too? No, it's something else. It's something else.
Yeah, but they're supposed to close their eyes, and he opened his eyes and he was peeking. That's how he saw it and decided to start using that symbol. I'm pretty sure he pissed off a lot of rabbis.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Nimoy was good like that. So, but now that we're on the subject of Ezekiel, though, so what? I mean, just to paraphrase, what is the story of Ezekiel? What happened? What did he see? Do you think?
I believe Ezekiel was seeing a lot of prophetic things that were going to happen towards the end times and later days. That's what I believe that he was seeing. And most of, whether it's Ezekiel, Jeremiah, Isaiah, Daniel, you can go through the list. Most of them are prophets, and they're seeing stuff that's future events. A big one of my favorites, Ezra. They're seeing prophetic events that are supposed to happen at a later date. And so that's in a nutshell what Ezekiel is seeing. And also, what a lot of people don't realize is a lot of these prophets are repeating the same message. Now, are they wording it a little bit differently? Yes. Are they seeing a vision slightly different? Are they getting the message slightly different? Yes. But they're all talking about, a lot of times, the same events that they're predicting. It's kind of like with Noah. Noah was constantly for hundreds of years telling people about this flood that was going to come, and nobody believed him. Well, it's the same thing that's happened with these prophets. Each prophet is coming through trying to give a warning of stuff that's going to come far, far down the road. And so that's what's going on with Ezekiel.
Now this is a kind of a famous picture here. I can't remember where this is from, but this is a depiction of the Bible times, and then you see in the sky this disc-shaped craft and the beams of light coming down. Do you think it's possible that some of these quote-unquote alien crafts are vehicles of God? Right, of like an angel's hot rod, I mean, or some kind of deity's vehicle of choice. I mean, you want to go in a little more depth about that?
I would say without a doubt, I would probably even say more than likely the like archangels, ones who are going to come back and start casting judgments and things like that. Oftentimes angels are messengers. Like you have the AOD, which we say colloquially, which the angel of death, where he's going through and his job is literally to go and kill people. Now, do you necessarily see him doing it? I mean, it's kind of like the movie Final Destination. Remember, you have all these different events that'll go and it'll trigger for a person's death, but you don't see anything there that's doing it, because that's happening in the fourth dimension. It's leading these causal events to make something happen. Just like when they talk about, having the Holy Ghost or the Spirit enacts something in you. that you decide to do something. It's not like an exorcist that's popping in your body and now it's walking around as you. You might be like, you know what, man, I'm kind of hungry right now. That's a spirit being put on you to, hey, get your ass up and go eat something. I mean, and it might be that you're being told to get up and do it at that specific reason so you can be at a specific place so certain things can happen. I mean, you ever wonder, like, man, I wasn't even planning on being over here, and crap, I ran into my old high school friend, and then me and him got rapping about something. That's how these different encounters happen. That spirit is put on you at certain times to do certain things and leads for certain encounters to happen, good or bad.
I do believe that I'm not quite sure where they come from, to be honest with you, but I do believe there's like some sort of guiding forces in the universe for people.
Yes.
Everything, I believe everything happens for a reason and doesn't happen for a reason too. And I've seen that a lot in I've seen that a lot in my own life, and in other people's too have mentioned that as well. It's just like, I can't believe this happened. It was like a 1 in a billion thing that happened. It's like, well, what happened afterwards? Oh, well, then this happened. So if this 1 in a billion thing didn't happen, then you wouldn't have done this thing. You would have gone a totally different route, you know? So you got the whole sliding doors thing of like things that happen in your life to dramatically alter your life's path. You know, maybe you become a doctor instead of a lawyer. And then as a doctor, because one thing in your life made you think I should be a doctor, and you know, and then you end up saving the life of somebody who goes on to be either like one of the greatest people in history or one of the most evil people in history. You know, one of those kind of situations. So it's crazy stuff.
I forgot. Let me add on, because I guess I went a little bit off the topic. When you were talking about these vehicles for the angels, haven't you noticed something interesting about where they've been popping up lately? They've been popping up near military bases lately. Isn't that kind of interesting? And turning off defense systems.
Yeah. And they really started appearing in the 40s when we dropped bombs on the Japanese. That's when you started really seeing a whole lot of them at the time. So you may have these watchers in the sky that are watching humanity do all this stuff, and it's like, oh, they're on a path to destruction. So I got to hover over these silos and you know, deactivate these nukes because back in the 80s,
it's not time yet. Yeah.
Right. And then back in the 80s, a lot of people don't know that we almost went to nuclear war because the Russians thought that we had launched nukes. And there was one Russian guy who would not turn the key to launch. And he said, "Nah, something's not right here. Something's not right." And sure enough, it was all bullshit. It was some sort of flaw, some computer flaw or something like that, some sort of error. And it totally diverted nuclear war. Now, going back to fate, right? Or the powers that be that's controlling things. Something or someone or some energy put that person in that spot to make sure that those nukes didn't get fired off, right?
Yeah.
Because what if he had a cold that day, or what if he was sick that day, and or maybe his kid's sick or something, he had to stay home, and he wasn't there to do that. Someone else would have turned the key, and you and I are not talking. You know, we're rubbing sticks together trying to make fire at this point, right? So it's crazy how that works.
Don't forget the 60s. Don't forget Cuban Missile Crisis also.
Yeah, or even today too. I mean, we're, you know, now the difference is, I think it is getting towards the time when it is supposed to happen. Now, I just don't know if that's within the next year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years. I don't know exactly when that time is, but I do know that we are getting closer to it. Well, we are at the closest point of nuclear annihilation than we ever have been in our history, which scares the poop out of me. Hey, Laura on the Rockfin tipped us $2 too. Thanks, Laura. Appreciate you Very, very sweet of you. She said, I wish I could give more. I said, no, that's fine. $2 is great. You know, I can do good things with $2, man. I'll make it stretch.
Or
all
make
right.
her stretch.
Hey, well, for $2, she might yawn and tell me to go fuck myself. Anywho, so
inflation these days.
We're at the halfway point, so I think that we should probably start getting into Revelation, right? Not Revelations.
Right. Favorite topic.
Not plural. Yeah, I know, we saved the best for last. Not plural. I'm a victim of this too. I would say the book of Revelations, but it's singular. It's the book of Revelation. Now, and these are the writings of John of Patmos, right? So you want to tell people a little about who John of Patmos was?
John is one of the last major prophets of the Bible. John was on the Isle of Patmos, or in his Hebrew, Yachanan. He was kind of more of a man who was kind of destitute at the time, kind of more of a hermit. And John all of a sudden started getting, these visions. And so as John started getting these visions, he was told to write this stuff all down. And a lot of it, he's like, well, how am I, what do you mean I'm going to write down a whole bunch of stuff? And so, or John didn't actually write it himself. John had scribes, just like most of those prophets and people in those days. They had somebody who was writing all the stuff down for them. But anyway, John had like one dream when he pops right up and he gets all his scribes together and he just starts going and literally just nonstop, just putting it all out, everything that he envisioned. It's like, imagine if you literally saw, let's see, the whole Fast and the Furious trilogy all the way up to 10 and recorded all of it, every word of that, of the scripts, all 10 of them, and just vomit them all out at one time. That's basically what John did. And he didn't necessarily have full understanding of everything that he was saying. He just knew that it was for latter events.
Miguel said, I found Revelation super interesting, but it was a hot mess. Yes, indeed, it is a hot mess. It is.
Well, the thing is, if you haven't read the other books and you're not familiar with the other prophets, and I would say if you're not familiar with the apocryphal books, the ones which are called deuterocanonical, which you'll find in like a Catholic Bible, or you'll find in the 1611 Bible, or you'll find in like the Septuagint or the Geneva Bible. If you look at it, you'll find that in these older Bibles. Most Baptist, mostly any church that comes out of the Protestant Reformation, which is your Baptist, which is your Jehovah's Witness, which is your Lutheran, which is your Zion, your AME, your Pentecostal, all of these different churches, you're not going to have those books in there. You're going to have 66 books versus the 80 books. And if you have these full 80 books, then you have more context to some of these things that he's talking about in there, because he's repeating them. And even if, for instance, like Revelation 7, it is echoing literally what Daniel is talking about. Or I might be getting it mixed up, which one it is in Revelations, or it might be Daniel 7 that I'm thinking of. And I can't remember which book in Revelations, but Daniel is literally mirroring, or John is literally mirroring what Daniel is talking about.
Because a lot of people have this conception that John is talking about the future, like our future, like the end of the world. But a lot of scholars have believed that he was talking about the times he was in, right? He was talking about Rome at the time, right? Now you also had your Roman oracles who were very prophetic in a way too. But a lot of these people, okay, so John of Patmos was in a cave, right? Mm-hmm. So there's one thing I had read about, that maybe the visions he was getting, because he was getting hallucinations from the fumes, the gases that were in the cave, and that was causing him to hallucinate. I mean, what do you think about that?
I mean, if I didn't see some of the things I see now, I would believe it was a strong possibility of that theory. But with the understanding I have now, I don't believe that that's the case. And the reason why I would say is, it's like some people say that, oh, well, no, he's talking about, depending on who you're talking to. Some people say, oh, no, he's talking about, his time period and maybe a little bit after, roughly maybe within 100 years of his lifespan. Some people are saying, no, this is for the end of days. I believe it is for the end of days, but but when are we talking about is the end of days? Are we saying that Revelation is going to, the end of days is going to start Revelations 1:1, or did that already start at some point? And we're at a certain point. Like, I try not to jump off the topic, but when you start getting into the 7 vials, the 7 trumpets, and the 7 seals, these are all things that are happening in a certain period of time. Now, I'm in the belief, and me and Jose definitely over at Hebrew Apologetics, what we teach is that we're already roughly in about the between the 5th and 6th seal right now. So some of the events of Revelation we've already been living through. And we're just heading towards some of the latter events. But modern Christianity believes it's still to come, all of it.
Yeah, because it mentions like plagues and stuff in the Bible too. Well, I think to me the dead giveaway in Revelation is the fact that at the end of the book, it talks about a new heaven and a new earth, right? And you're not going to get that in Rome. That doesn't sound like he's talking about modern times or even within 100 years. It seems like, so one of the stipulations to trigger the things to come is the rebuilding the temple, right? Is there's like supposed to be rebuilding the temple in Jerusalem, and that the Antichrist comes and sits on the
throne and stuff like that,
and declares himself as God, and that's when all hell breaks loose, right? Or am I just oversimplifying it?
No, you under what Christianity teaches, that's entirely correct. And even what Judaism teaches, that's entirely correct. But our understanding of it is that, for one, the Antichrist we don't believe that there's a specific individual that is the Antichrist, the son of Satan, that's going to be born on this earth and do all these things. We don't believe there's one specific person. We believe that it's entailing a system that's going to be against. And also that building of the temple is spiritual and it's physical. And so when it starts talking about that building of the temple, we believe that part is a spiritual building, as in, because it says the kingdom of heaven dwells within you. And so as the people start to come to what they're supposed to be doing and the beliefs and following things, that is the spiritual building of that temple, which will facilitate a Messiah returning. Then when the Messiah is able to return, and you start having, you have World War III, then you have the War of Jezreel, or of Armageddon. After Armageddon, then you would literally start to have a physical building of the temple. But at this point, we're talking about massive parts of the earth is completely destroyed. Everything is set back into almost like the Stone Ages as far as technology and things like that. And at that point, the earth is going to start cleaning itself and becoming anew, because you're not going to have the massive levels of pollutions and all these things like that. The rivers are going to start becoming fresh and clean and all that stuff all over again, and going back to the original state of how things are supposed to be. And then in that time period, it says that then there's going to be peace on earth. There's going to be no more wars and all that stuff. But got to get through the bad before you get to the good, of course.
Yeah, we're definitely going through the bad right now. That's for sure. One thing,
please. One thing, if I can say real quick, when I was throwing out talking about how Revelations echoes Daniel, if you go into Daniel and you start talking about Nebuchadnezzar's dream, Nebuchadnezzar has a dream of the statue, and that statue has the head of gold, the chest of silver, the legs of bronze, or bronze, or you could say brass, depends on which interpretation you're reading, legs of iron in the toes of tin miry clay. That right there is literally talking about those different prophecies. So the gold head was Babylon, the silver chest was the Medo-Persian Empire, the legs of bronze, that's the Greek Empire, the legs of iron, that's the Roman Empire, and then those 10 toes are the nations which spring out from the Roman Empire. So the modern NATO or nation states of the UN and America encapsulated, because it would fall up under like America, its different commonwealths that it's had, and for instance, like Australia, all fall up under Great Britain and the UK, and they spring out of that part of the descendants of the Roman Empire.
Okay, so let's take a quick break. I have to run to the bathroom real quick because I drank way too much coffee. So I'm gonna put the countdown on here. We're not gonna wait 5 minutes. So give me just a few minutes. I'll be right back. Okay. So everybody need to go potty. Go potty now. This is the time to do it. Okay. We'll be right back. All right, we are back. Woo! Thank you, sir. I was moved by the spirit. We'll just say that, and something moved. Anyway, yeah. Rick said angels told him to take a piss. I tell you, man, it's like you said. You get that little voice or that little feeling like you better go, you better do this, you better do that. And probably that voice should tell me to change my diet too. So anyway, so
It
I want
probably
to
is telling you that too.
I know, right? It's like you eating the wrong stuff, son. What the hell's wrong with you? So there are other things in Revelation. I think this is the big one everybody probably wants to talk about is the mark of the beast. And I'm not talking about Bush Light. I'm talking about the beast. 666. Everybody's got their theories. In the movie The Omen, the kid Damien had the actual numbers 666 in Arabic numbers on his scalp. I don't think that's how that works. There's theories that the barcode is a mark of the beast, that you won't be able to trade anything, you won't be able to do it. And in a sense, the majority of the things that we purchase have barcodes, and you can't really purchase them without the barcodes, right? So anyway, all theories and stuff. What do you think the mark of the beast is that they talk about?
Well, I feel like you're close. The mark of the beast, yes, it is not going to be the number 666 that we shave off the back of our hair and like, oh, I have a 666 back here. No, that's not what's going to happen. And I feel like that the movie Omen could be so much better than how it finished off in 2 and 3. But that's a whole nother conversation. What we believe that is, it literally tells you that the mark of the beast is going to be, it used the word, what is it, charagma. And so it's going to be implanted within the skin. So it's going to be, it says that you'll have a mark in it says right hand or in your forehead for the mark of the beast. And I just think it's pretty interesting that Elon Musk has been talking about that brain chip a lot lately and putting a chip literally in your head. And then you have Chip Girl out there who literally does have a chip in her hand where she puts it up to everything. And so, yes, the reason why I say you're kind of close with the whole barcode thing, but it's taken it to that next level when it went to the chip phase. And so now they're getting us comfortable with it in our phone. So yeah, we can go up with our phone and we can boop, do that. Or we can use our card, which has a chip in it. And eventually it's going to get rid of that. And the chip will just go into our hand. And so therefore, just like your car, you'll put your hand next to your car to unlock it. And that chip will be able to, recognize, okay, this is the rightful owner to this car. Now we can start up. And so your banking, all of that stuff is going to be, well, right now they already have it that it's able to chip to all of these different things. You're able to have your medical records on them. You're able to have dental records, your kids' school records. You're able to put all of this stuff on there, all your banking, your mortgages, your deeds, your titles. Well, what we believe and what we teach is that it's going to get to a point where that's going to become mandatory. Yeah. That we all have to engage in that. And so we see the convergence of the technology with the chip. We already see people who are starting to willingly put the chip in their hands. We see some who are putting the chip in their head. And it talks about even just measuring your body. Oh, well, you could check, see if your blood pressure is higher, this, or change your diet. And there's going to be so many different functions that are going to be tied to it that they're going to try to appetize people into it at first. And then we believe that you're going to be coerced into it after. And so with this whole digital cryptocurrency and a lot of these nations going to this crypto market, this is fueling a way where it's going to become a cashless society and all of your stuff will be done through, that checks and balances through the crypto market. So since the government is already working on that, you get that up and running where the cashless society, it only makes sense that the chip is right behind that.
I mean, what about the QR code being the mark of the beast, right? Because you're scanning everything nowadays. I mean, not me. I'm still old school. I still pay cash. I don't really use my phone to pay for anything. I'll still use my debit card, like an actual card. But like, but I went for I had to go to a drug screening yesterday, right? And at this little clinic, and instead of the old school, they give you the thing and you write out and you fill out the paper and stuff like that. You scan the barcode, right? And that scared the piss out of me. I was like, I mean, I had the option of doing when the first time I'd ever been in there to fill out actual paper and stuff like that. I said, yeah, let me do that because my phone. I said my phone is crap, and it is crap. But I didn't want to do that scanning business. I don't like doing any of that kind of business, especially when it comes to my health, right? And so you're starting to see a lot of that. You're seeing the RFID chips that they put in pets, right? For location for the pets. They're talking about putting that in babies. So like if a baby is kidnapped or something like that, and it's like, well, it's for safety. It's for safety. It's like, is it really for safety, or is it a way to just track people?
Well, with COVID, you had the digital ID that they were talking about too.
Yeah.
Like all that stuff that you're saying, we believe all of it is going to eventually be tied into that chip, QR codes, everything. And so when you go to that dentist office instead, you know how you go to the gym and you might have your little app on your phone and you just scan it, like for those who go to LA Fitness. Instead, you just put your hand under there and boom, that's going to be able to scan your membership. When you go to the doctor's office, it'll be able to scan, oh, this is, this is Marcus Cage, and this is all of his information that we need. This is his dental records. This is this. So when you go to the dentist office, they're already going to know, okay, they'll just say, hey, do you give access to, click the button if you give access for us to, take the banking funds. And so all of that stuff is going to be on there along with the tracker and all that. And like on Political Matrix, I put on there the video about Joe Biden literally saying, I think it was 2008 in the John Roberts confirmation, where he was talking about one day there will be a bill to microchip humans to be able to track them. You will rule on that one day. And so all the way back to 2008, this has already been something that has been down the pipeline, that's been in the works, that's been going on. So for me, I see it. I mean, think about perfect example, Demolition Man. Remember, everything was on the chip. Everything. Yeah. So you get fined, it automatically just takes it out of your account. And if they want to, and we also believe since that that'll be tied into your car. Think about Minority Report. His car was able to lock the doors and drive him to the precinct. Yeah. All of these things that we believe that are all going to be tied to that. And then you start getting further down with the 5G and the 6G and stuff like that. Well, that's when a lot of this stuff will come all online.
Well, when there the story recently about somebody had stolen this person's car, and there was a kid in the car, right? And the people had like a certain service that you could track the vehicle, but they hadn't paid the fee for the service, and so the police are talking to the car company or the folks that are running the security for this car, and saying, yeah, can you locate the car so we can find this kid? And they said, well, they got to pay the fee first. I mean, that's the kind of dystopian society we're already living in right now. And Miguel mentioned here too, he was talking about how all that's the everything is done on the phone in China, right? It's you got your social credit score, you got your social scores, all of that. It's just some scary stuff. And it's like back in the 70s, when I was a little kid, and even into the 80s, we never thought about that. I think people may have mentioned a barcode in the past, but we didn't understand how much these codes that we were to scan where you know, you scan these codes in the store at the time, but now you have to scan everything. You want to look for something, boom, somebody's lost their dog, scan this code and you'll see all the information and stuff like that. It's just it's
You
it's
want
a
to go to
simpli-
this concert or whatever.
yeah,
I mean,
there's this
I did
it's a
the,
simplicity.
Australumina.
Yeah,
I did the Australumina, and for all the information on it, you scan the barcode, and it told you what time the event was going to start, how long this different thing went, as far as that. And that's, I mean, I know what you're talking about. I mean, it's a little bit before my time, but I remember when, like, say, power would be out, and the stores had no problem. Oh, don't worry, we're doing all cash over here, just counting it out. And,
or they get the credit card and go, one of those, the manual things, right, with the carbon papers, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and they don't do any of that stuff anymore. I mean, and so I do remember some of that stuff vaguely, and I remember because you had the little corner stores that they didn't have any of that stuff. It was basically just old school. It pops out, and they're just counting, you know.
Or they wrote it down. They had a carbon notepad thing too. They would, in fact, there was this little grocery store that my parents went to. And Dad, instead of just paying for the groceries, then he would pay once a month. He would pay his bill once a month. And so every time they go in and buy the groceries, they'd fill out this little carbon sheet. The store would keep a copy. They give you a copy, so that way you'd know and you'd both know how much you owed. And then you get your tally at the end of the month. And you can't do that shit now. The people will be like, no. Although I will say, that sentiment is still alive in the bodegas here in New York, right? Because when I first moved to New York, God love the bodegas, angels on earth. So like, there was times when I was broke as a joke, and I'd go to the bodega and say, you know, it'd be like in between pay periods or something like that. And I'd be broke as a joke and say, hey, you know, can I get a pack of smokes? Or, hey, can I get some of this and I'll pay you on payday? It's coming up next week. Yeah, sure. No problem. They just write it down on a little piece of paper. And this is like 21st century. We're talking like in the 2020s. They're still doing that stuff. These are the last bastions of that non-digital kind of contracts, if you will, you know, that you have with people. Now everything else, it's just you got to go online. You want to get a job. You can't go into an employer and just drop off a resume anymore. They'll look at you like you're from Mars, right? You know, well, here's our website. Go to our website and just look for the job and then you got to do everything online, you know. So it's scary times when it comes to that stuff. And I'm not a Luddite. I'm a tech loving kind of guy, but I want to use the tech for good and not for this crazy control bullshit. So anyway, that's probably another thing. We could probably talk about that kind of shit all night too.
Well, I mean, you brought that up. I mean, shoot, in the bodegas, they still sell loosies, you know, which are illegal. Yeah. So a lot of people don't know loosies are loose cigarettes, but
that's right.
I mean, a lot of this stuff that it's creeping up, and China is far ahead of this. They're even worse. The UK is further along than we are. Denmark, places like that, like they literally have chipping parties. Everybody go gets a chip, and they're like, "Oh, look how cool I am with my chip. I don't have to carry keys anymore or a wallet. I just have my phone." And a lot of times, their phone now is just their watch.
Yeah.
You know, with an Apple iPhone. And so that's going to get to a point where, okay, now we're getting rid of the phones. And like a newer technology I've seen now is with the glasses, where now it'll show across your glasses where you can watch something. And with one eye, you're seeing forward, the other eye, you might be seeing your text messages. And so that's going to lead to eventually is the brain tech. So now you literally will just be able to see a metaverse type image in front of you and not need the screen anymore.
Yeah, as the kids say, hard pass. So me not want nothing to do with that bullshit. I don't want no chips in my brain. The only place a chip should go is in some nice guacamole and into my belly. That's the way chips should go. Into your skin, in your brain. No, thank you. Okay, but there's more good stuff here in Revelation too. So let's talk about since we talked about the mark of the beast, let's talk about the two beasts that are mentioned in there. So you have the seven-headed beast from the sea, but you also have the beast of the earth, and I believe also known as the false prophet. I could be wrong there. You want to talk about those two?
Well, the beast of the earth and false prophet. The false prophet, I won't even I'll just go straight to it. I believe the false prophet is the Roman Catholic Church. That's the false prophet. If you think of it, they're the ones who hold themselves up as being the authority on the Bible. And if you think about it, even if you say, well, I'm not a Catholic, you still hold to a lot of Catholic beliefs, whether you know it or not. Catholics are the ones who put forth the Trinity. They're the ones who put forth, going to church on Sundays, the Sunday Sabbath. They're the ones who pushed Easter. They're the ones who, has Palm Sunday and all these different things like that come out of the Catholic Church. Most of the beliefs you have about the Virgin Mary, that comes from the Catholic Church. That wasn't the concept that, he was born without a literal earthly father. That's something that the Catholic Church took on to believe. So that's the false prophet. When it starts talking about, that beast that rose up out of the sea, that's talking about those different empires and the culmination of the empires. When it starts talking about a dragon with 7 heads and all that, that gets really, really deep. And what that's trying to explain to you is about world powers and dominions and how they're going to affect different things on the earth. So that's what that's going into. When it starts talking about the beasts of the earth, which, let me try to remember, what was that? Revelations, was it Revelation 7? Actually, I think I gave myself a note what it was. Revelation. Where was that? Not 1 and 1. Oh, that's about the other thing. 4 horsemen. He said C13. Oh, let me skip here.
Oh, I do want to shout, while you're doing that, a shout out Fred Edward over on the Rockfin. Good to see you, Fred. Hope all y'all are having a wonderful Sunday. Everybody talking about chips in the chat. Somebody said casino chips, chocolate chips. I said cow chips. Yipper talking about mango chips. What about Mr. Chips, right? For all the old people who only know that reference. It was like a 7-headed beast with 7 crowns.
Yeah, I got that one here. I'm just trying to get the other one ready. So that was in, okay, so that's 13. Oh, that's just a little further down. Okay, so starting with Revelations chapter 13. Say, and I stood up upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the names of blasphemy. Like I was saying before, when you go into that beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads, 10 horns. Remember I said the 10 horns, the 10 toes? Those 10 toes, those 10 nations rising up out of the Roman Empire. And that's where the crowns, these nations are the ones which are basically controlling the earth. And that's what that's talking about there. And the names of blasphemy. So a lot of the stuff it's talking about blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were like a bear, and his mouth as like a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat, and gave great authority. So when it's going into that leopard, that's going back into Daniel, when Daniel was talking about an empire that was fast like a leopard. That's going into the Greek Empire. And his feet were like a bear. That bear was going into the Medo-Persian Empire. And in that area, it's known to be, bears all over the place. And his mouth was like a lion. That lion is going back to, is talking about the Babylonian Empire. If you look even to Babylon, the statues there, you see a griffin. which is a lion with wings. And the dragon that gave him his power. The dragon is symbolizing the Roman Empire. In antiquity, they looked at the Roman Empire like it was a dragon because it just devoured over any enemies and it was so massively dominant with the weapon. And it starts talking about how it was given power to. I could just keep reading. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. And so it's talking about all of these different empires through the ages give this final beast this power. So if you think about America, America's government, which we get, comes from a form of ancient Greece, democracy. If you think about we're powerful, just like Rome was militarily. You go into Babylonian, a lot of the different gods, different religions, a mixture of all these different people from all different walks of life. That's what Babylon was like. And I'm missing one in there. What I mentioned, leopard. And his feet were like the bear. So that's talking about the Persian Empire. And the Persian Empire, where they get a lot of the different, if you think about just a lot of look at the different buildings and stuff that we have around here. The Persians took from different cultures and incorporated their different belief systems and things like that. The same with Babylon. So it's talking about that beast would have all of these different characteristics, this final beast or this final place that it's talking about, or empire. And they worship the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. So like I said before, they worship the dragon, Rome, which gave power to this beast. This final beast came out of the Roman Empire. Worship beast and who is like unto the beast? Just like people say, well, who's like America? It's you see where it's echoing and leading to, and who is able to make war with it? Think about how many people think, well, you can't take on America. Nobody can beat America. Not in war. Is that same mentality that it's talking about. Whoever this beast is talking about is a power or a nation that nobody can make war with this. And so, and there was given to him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 40 and 2 months. It's just talking about that this is giving him power over a certain amount of time, this empire. Now, let's skip down to the 11 so we can get to the other one that you asked about. Revelations 13 and 11. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb and spake like a dragon. If you think about it, horns represent power. So they're saying that there's two horns. If you think about it, what controls America? You have two different major power systems in America. Whether you're talking about the economic and the military, it's Democratic and the Republican, whatever, there's those two horns of power that control this beast, and it speaks like a lamb. America all the time speaks like, oh, well, we're here to help and this and that, while they're running coups.
Spread democracy. We're going to spread democracy. Yeah.
So this beast that it's talking about is talking, I say pretty clearly it's talking about America. But this is that beast that it's talking about. This is the beast which, and it starts talking about Mystery Babylon, and it's fornicated with the other nations and things like that. It spread its belief systems, its movies, its culture, in a sense, to the whole entire world. And so that's what it's talking about, that beast. To not get too deep into the lesson, but yeah.
Right on. And that makes a lot of sense too. That it just seems like the seven-headed beast is more like think about
it. How many continents is it?
7 continents.
7 continents. So those seven crowns or 7 heads. I mean, not seven. The 10 horns. 10 horns, 10 senses of power, which are controlling those 7 heads. You know what I'm saying?
Because everybody knows about the Nazi bases in Antarctica. Because you got to bring Antarctica into the mix. You can't leave them out. That's a story for another day. That's another one we could probably spend 2 hours talking about, just Antarctica alone. But okay, so
if I told you about the what is it, the Brene Bith or whatever, and I start going into that gets real deep. We'll talk about that too eventually.
See, now you just whetting my appetite, Marcus. All right. We already eating, and now you're trying to make me hungry for this stuff. Okay, so it seems like the seven-headed beast to me is kind of like a lead up to the beast of the earth, which is where we're at right now. So that now that if that's what John was talking about way back then, so that is it just seems like his visions and his prophecy or whatever spans several generations, right? So it's not like a particular time in history, it's the remainder of history, because all this stuff is going to lead up to it. It's not like an all of a sudden thing. All of this stuff has to build up to this point, right? So which leads us up to the main event of Revelation, which is or the main characters, if you will, that everybody knows, the four horsemen of the apocalypse. So this is obviously another metaphor too, right? Or there's not going to be actual.
It's definitely a metaphor. But what I would say, which people don't realize, is remember how we were talking about those spirits, a spirit being put upon those spirits of, the white horse is being put on a group of people to do something, and the same with the black horse and the red horse, and then eventually, the horse of death. I mean, all of that is tying in. And let's see, what was that? I'm trying to remember. What was that? Revelation, or what 12, I believe, which right before it, Revelation 12 is I think it's talking about those four. So let me get that real quick for you. And let's see.
But they are, so while he's looking, oh yeah, go for it.
Yep. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed in the sun and the moon. Let me skip. Let's see. Am I at the right spot? Just got to make sure. No. I'm a little off. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, that's why. Yeah, let me double check. I might have put the wrong spot. Oh no, it's 6. 6. That's what it is.
So Denver mentions, in order of appearance, here are the 7 main kingdoms narrated in biblical history. The kingdom of Egypt. The first major kingdom we meet in biblical history is Egypt, the kingdom of Israel, kingdom of Babylon, kingdom of Persia, kingdom of Greece, kingdom of Rome, and kingdom of God. Does that sound about right to you, or?
Which I don't disagree with that either. I mean, one thing that I like, for instance, when you start talking about, for instance, Deuteronomy, curses in Deuteronomy, the curses are reoccurring when it talks about like them going into captivity multiple times. They went into captivity in Egypt. They went into captivity in Babylon. They went into captivity in Persia and Mede. They went into captivity in Greece, in Rome. So there's multiple captivities. And so, for instance, there's always a lot, like I talked about earlier, that temple. It's a spiritual temple that's being built up, and then later on, it's a physical temple. So some of these have actual even multiple meanings within them. That's why it gets even more complex.
So the 4 horsemen, you have death, pestilence, war, and famine. Is that right?
Yes.
That's the 4? Not necessarily in that order, but that's the way I remembered them. So
yes. I'm trying to make sure I get it right. Seals opening and what fall thereupon. What's the rise? Let's see. I'm trying to see if I can find it. Yeah, there we go. And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard as it was, and this is Revelation 6, starting at 1. And I saw when the Lamb opened up the seals, and I heard, as it were, the noise of thunder, one of the four beasts saying, "Come and see." And I saw and behold a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and with a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. 3. And when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, "Come and see." And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that stayed thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another, and that there was given unto him a great sword. And then 5, and when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, "Come and see." And beheld, and lo, a black horse. He that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, "A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou not hurt the oil and the wine." And when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, "Come and see." And behold, and I looked and beheld a pale horse, and on his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followeth with him. And the power was given unto him over the fourth part of the earth to kill with the sword, and with hunger, and with death, and the beasts of the earth. And so what that's going into is, let's go back to that first one. When it talks about that first horse is given power with a bow, this obviously had to be an ancient society that this was talking about, that was given this power. I liken it to when I say that some of this parts of it where he's given prophecy, some of it he might be talking about what he's going through. That's the reason why I say some of it, they're not entirely wrong, because that first part is going into what I would believe would be the Greek period. That would be the first one that was conquering, because that was the first time when the known world was basically completely conquered under Alexander. And the second beast, and there went out, that one was red. That red one who came out, that was the Roman Empire. And then when you get down to the third beast, that was black, and that sat on him with a pair of balances in his hand. When you start looking at what was going on, I would say in, say, so-called Middle Ages and stuff like that, when you start having a lot of famine and stuff after the fall of the first, second, and third, first and second empires of the Roman Empire. The third would be kind of more or less the revised Roman Empire, which a lot of people, myself included, would liken to NATO. So that's when you started having that famine happen. You mean, perfect example, you start thinking about the potato famine, you think about the famines that were happening in the late 1800s, World War I, and all the different stuff that was going up, World War II. Those are those different famines. And then 4, when it was given the power to cause death on earth and different things like that. And I believe that start going into later on colonialism around the world. And so that ties in with those same beasts, because then when it gets to 13, which we were just reading about in there, it starts talking about like all the different things that was going on as far as that dragon coming up. And so that's fitting with that same dragon that was given power from these other different beasts. And those beasts had different entities that were put on them to go out and do the different things that they were doing. That makes sense a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit convoluted, but I mean, it's just like, you know, when you try to put it in context to certain time frames, you know, it's really hard to nail it down to just one time, you know, because like you said, it was in the time of John up to where we're at now. That's the build up to the end times, right? So, and like we said,
I was going to say what ties that together is when you look at what they say, because this is the thing. A lot of people don't know this about Revelation. It's kind of repeating itself. He's saying the same thing. He's just rewording it different ways throughout Revelations. And so each time he kind of rewords it, it gets a little bit more clarification on what he's said, the first and the second and into the third time.
Well, why do you think he did that? Why do you think he kept re-clarifying it over and over like that?
Because I believe that he was given he was given the prophecies in that way to make it harder for people, because they knew that people would eventually get those books outside of the people who were supposed to get them. And I think that information was supposed to be completely clouded and confusing so that people wouldn't have a complete idea of what was coming. Because if you look at it, he's still talking about first, second, and third seals. He hasn't even gotten to, there's 7 seals. He hasn't even gotten to the 4th and 5th, 6th, or 7th seal. And so that's the reason why I say that we teach that we're already in the 5th seal, going on to going on to 6 and 7. And so in that 4th seal where we're left off, that's going into the early parts of colonization, basically around the world. And then after that colonization, it would make sense that chronologically the next point that would be around the 5th seal is stuff that will be going on with a next war that's coming on. Because in the Bible, in the 6th seal, when it gets to the 6th seal, it starts talking about the 3 woes, the great woes, which are 3 major destructions. And so if there's already been 2 woes that have happened, and, where I left off, it is colonization, well, the 2 wars come right after it, and that would be in the 5th seals. And the 6th seal then goes into World War III, and then eventually goes into Battle of Armageddon.
Now let's step out of the Bible for just a second and look at where we're at today. Especially current events, what's going on with Russia and Ukraine, and the positioning of the United States, trying to basically do with Taiwan what they're doing with Ukraine, right? Setting these proxies up against these major powers across the world. Now, we have always been economic rivals with China, but we never was. I say never. We obviously fought the Chinese in Korea during the Korean conflict. But it wasn't like we had declared war on China, right? It was, but we are close to that now. Oh yeah. And I don't know if we're close to actually declaring war with Russia, because it just seems like that's just ridiculous. You both have nukes. You're both going to just kill each other. So I don't even know what that, but, so, I don't want you to be Debbie Downer, but I want you to speak truth, brother. I brought you, I didn't bring you in here to lie to us. How close are we to the actual Armageddon? How close do you think we are in today's times?
If I had to give my honest, true assessment, I would say we're less than 5 years.
Wow.
I would say possibly more like 2 years. At least being into World War III, because the big issue with, and this is what, I hear some people and they say, well, this is just the organized collapse of the West. This is, I put it like, I asked this question before. I said, after slavery, when the slaves were free, did they ever think it would be a reality where you would have slaves which had millions and billions of dollars? Descendants of slaves. They never factored that in. That was never a remote possibility.
Right.
The same with China. When they started putting businesses in China and doing this, in their mind, they never, ever saw a reality where China would get up, where they could be strong enough to push back against the United States.
Yeah.
And so I think that it goes into them not foreseeing what's going on and reading the room around them. And I tell people all the time, yes, there has been a global coordination for the most part, over the last probably easily a good 40, 50 years, maybe longer. I mean, you can easily make an argument for post World War II. There's been a sense of global coordination outside of Russia for the most part.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, that makes sense.
now these nations are getting stronger, and in the Bible it says, those that'll be weak, that you'll beat your plowshares into swords. Those nations will start feeling like, well, I'm strong enough to not have to take this anymore. And I tell people the same thing. Think about any like mob stories you ever watch. Every mobster who's getting shitted on by the major mob boss is waiting for that opportunity to overthrow the boss.
Mm-hmm.
Every single one of them, whether they're at the lieutenant level, capo, or whatever, they're looking for their opportunity to move up. And now these countries are feeling like they're strong enough now, they don't have to listen to the US anymore. And they also know that the rest of NATO is a lot weaker. And so if they're able to get the United States out of the way, then the other people will kind of fall in line to the new hegemony. And there's prophecies in there which it literally talks about the land of the north, or it starts talking about Gog and Magog, which Gog is whoever the ruler. Gog means ruler or prince or king. Magog actually traces back to the landmass of Russia. And so you have that, and then it starts talking about all these different allies, basically with lands which akin to Asia, akin to Turkey, akin to Persia, which is Iran, Iraq, areas like that. And so you're able to start seeing a tie where it talks about when these nations all start linking up together, when you hear wars and rumors of wars. But in particular, when you see these major nations start coming together, which become superpowers, when you see that, that's how you know it's getting closer and closer. And with some of the stuff I'm seeing, North Korea has a new weapon where it's an underwater nuclear, basically it's a nuclear torpedo. It's meant to detonate underwater on a coastline to literally create massive tsunamis to wipe out, coastal cities. It talks about the great city being left dark. One of Russia's major weapons is EMP bomb, EMP nuke, which completely knocks out power grids and sources. And then China literally has the hypersonic nuclear missiles, which even a couple of our generals have been like, NORAD didn't even pick that thing up. It literally flew all the way across American airspace, and there's nothing we can do about it. And America's been trying to, America's had the gift of weaponry, but now they're trying to build the hypersonic missiles, and they're not working. They're failing at it. And so you're seeing all of its enemies getting stronger and getting more into place and starting to click up. And you're seeing division with Turkey is kind of wavering from NATO. You see France, they want the heck out of there. You see Germany is like a little skittish right now. And only people that you see that's really 100% in it with the US is Great Britain for the most part.
Yeah. And even them,
it's a little...
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about the economic too, with BRICS, right? The first time we've seen something like this, that, what was I reading the other day, that BRICS had, it was like a better GDP than the United States or something like that. It's that's the signs on the wall right there. It's like when these countries, they're finally getting fed up with the United States, they're coming together to at least to economically combat them, right? Because
it starts economically.
Right. Well, it starts economically, right? And then you look at Europe too, who's being just basically strong-armed by the United States for natural gas there. When that resentment is building. You already see it in France. Hey, France don't fuck around. France, we out there, buddy. And even in the UK too, even the loyalist ally of the United States, the UK, the people are out in the streets, and it's it's, I don't know, man. I've seen a lot of shit over the years, and I've tried to pay attention as much as I can. I've never seen anything like this going on. This just seems like we're in a whole new ball game. And whether you believe the events of the Book of Revelation or not, a lot of this stuff is mirroring what is going on in the Book of Revelation. So it's exciting, but it's very frightening and scary at the same time. Especially that sense of what's going to happen next, that sort of thing. I don't know, man. Yeah. It's just, ooh.
Well, it even says that great city in Revelations. It starts talking about Mystery Babylon. And if you guys don't even have to agree, like, say you do believe in the Bible, but you don't believe in what I'm saying. Mystery Babylon is described as supposed to be that great city on the hill that basically has power with all and trades with all the nations. And it literally talks about a destruction that's going to come to, because it says Babylon has fallen and become the habitations of devils. And it's talking about that nation in 1 hour is basically destroyed. Now I'm thinking, in John's day, what weapon could destroy any city in an hour? I don't care, even a small city. What weapon can destroy one city in an hour? And it talks about in the book of, trying to remember, is that Ezekiel or is it Esdras, where it talks about that people's eyes and tongues will melt away in their sockets while they're still standing. It starts talking about arrows being shot from the ends of the earth. It starts talking about the ones who sat down, who were cool with you, turned on you. That sounds a lot like what I see going on with some of America's allies, that they're same people who are going to be there breaking bread with you one moment are like, hey, we're not with them.
They'll be breaking legs the next. Yeah. It's like, we're tired of the bullshit. And it's like, I don't think a lot of these people are allies because they like the United States. They're allies because they don't want to be a victim of the United States foreign policy. So, so they're kind of like abused spouses, or hostages, if you want to think about it like that. Rick in the chat says we got about 2 to 5 years. Sounds about right. Like what you were saying. Something else that's supposed to be happening within the next 5 years too, and I talk about this a lot, is the Thwaites Glacier down in Antarctica, right? The ice shelf that's keeping it in place. If you don't know about Thwaites, then you ain't been listening to me, because I talk about that shit all the time. I think it's like 10 stories tall, and it's the area of Florida. This giant glacier, and the only thing that's keeping it from going into the drink is this ice shelf, and this ice shelf underneath it is melting because the seawaters around Antarctica are starting to warm up. And so it's this dangerous chain of events where the warmer the water gets, the more this ice shelf's going to melt. And when it does, the flooding, we're talking about on a scale of maybe like 30 meters rise in the water around so that means New York's gone, LA's gone, all the coastal cities gone, right? And so a 5-year timetable, scary, but I'll go along with it. I mean, I can't see anything past 10 years. If we keep going at the same pace that we're going right now, with our governments and the way we treat the planet, the way we treat our citizens, all of that is just going to be this perfect storm that you got your apocalypse on your hands. It's an apocalypse. So we like to spread sunshine here at Mundus Ultra.
I've been telling, I know Chris, I saw Chris out there in the chat, and he can testify to this, that I've been talking about this for years now, telling people what's coming. I mean, I've seen all this stuff coming, and that's how I've been able to say what I see is coming, because I'm looking in the ancient texts and stuff like that, what it was alluding to. And this is what I'm seeing just in general. It talks about the Euphrates drying up, seeing all that. Starts talking about even these different weather phenomena that we're having. Start talking about earthquakes in diverse places. Start talking about famines, plagues, pestilence, all these different things that it's talking about. And people will say, oh, well, we've already said this and we've always had that, but not all at the same time.
Right. Exactly. We're able to control
the same time or the intensity.
We're able to control the weather basically at this point, and we are able to create earthquakes in one form or another. Whether it be fracking or some sort of fracking is the most, that's the most publicized way that we've been causing these earthquakes too. So it's technologically, we are a very scary race of people as far as like what we can do to the earth right now. Obviously, we've been able to destroy the earth like 20 times over with nukes. We've had that, but that's just surface level. I mean, you're talking about like something that can control, create hurricanes, something that can create, earthquakes and tornadoes too. Look what's happened in the last tsunamis. Look what the weather's been happening, how crazy it's been. All these hurricanes in the Gulf that are just like insanely powerful compared to what they were just 20-30 years ago. Where you just once in every 100 years you'd get a Hurricane Camille, and then all of a sudden a Katrina comes along and says, hold my beer. And then they're just getting worse. They're just getting worse. And it's just, Well,
it's the same thing with tornadoes too.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people don't realize it's like, I grew up in Tornado Alley, and I'll tell you all, the scale that we grew up with was F, Vegeta scale 1, Vegeta scale up to 5. Because they kept getting stronger, they had to change the scale to EF, enhance Vegeta scale. And so now what's category EF3 is the equivalent to what a 4 was. I mean, a weaker 5 now.
Jesus.
Because they're getting stronger. We used to have them, and you'd have, a lot of damage more in the rural areas and trailer parks and stuff, maybe some reservation lands. And you'd have 4, 5 deaths. Now, every time there's one, you're having 25, 30 deaths. That's not, I didn't grow up with 20 to 30 people dying from tornadoes every other week. That's not normal. I mean, I'm living in California right now. The level of rain that they're getting out here is not normal. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. Everywhere you're looking around the world, there's a lot of stuff that's going on that is not normal.
Yeah, I mean, look at all the snowfall that California was getting.
Yeah, that Jimmy was talking about.
Yeah, just like she was talking about where she was at. They hadn't seen that since the 70s. That much snow up in those days, and that's going to become a recurring thing too. The heat that we're going to experience this summer is going to be, every year. It just seems like it breaks records. The Earth getting hotter and hotter every year. Screw Google. It's not he's talking about he prefers the fajita scale because he's hungry, I guess. This jackass. I swear to God. The fajita scale. What about the burrito scale? Come on. Have a little protein in there.
Right now.
I know, right? I'm a Taco Bell junkie. I'm sorry. I like shit food. I'm probably gonna put me in the grave early, but I'm gonna die with a pizza taco in my mouth. I think that's probably what's gonna happen. Okay, so we have about a few minutes left here, about 10 minutes left here. I want to do a little speed round here. Sure. Just kind of like, you don't really have to go too in depth if you don't want to. Let's talk about the Bible itself. The Bible as a tome, the Bible as a source of information, but also there's been people who have researched this, and a lot of it's been debunked. Let's talk about numerology in the Bible. How significant, like the 666 and various numbers that are in the Bible. How significant are these numbers, and what are probably the most significant numbers do you think off the top of your head in the Bible are?
I don't want to dispel numerology per se, because there are people who probably know a lot more about it than I do, and I don't know what conclusions they're coming to with it. So I would have to know what conclusions they're coming to completely say yay or nay to it. But significant numbers in the Bible, of course, we already talked about 666. 12 is a big number. 7 is a big number. 7 is a year of talks about year of completion. 7 is brought up a lot in the Bible. 12 is brought up a lot in the Bible. Those are the main ones. You could even say 6. For instance, like the what it says, God's favorite flower is the lily, which has 6 petals. Or a pomegranate, where it talks about the 613 commandments, and the petals of a pomegranate has the 6 petals, which people say the Star of David. It's not a star. It's literally the lily or the pomegranate. Yeah, that's what I would say as far as numerology. I can't necessarily completely debunk it because I don't know what conclusions they're trying to draw, but I don't think that I don't know enough about it.
Well, three would probably be a good one too, with the Trinity and all. But I guess where I'm leading up to with this is I remember back, even as far back as the 80s, they were talking about the Bible as a code book, like how before the advent of computers, there was a code in the Bible that lay hidden, and it wasn't until you were able to break it down using a computer that they actually found an actual code that mentions certain events that happened that either have happened or were going to happen in history. A lot of these were debunked, but some of these were not. So I mean, what's your take on that? Do you think there's like some sort of code to the Bible, or is that just like some sort of number coincidence?
I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't be surprised that some of those might line up to something, because I do believe like the Bible is written that complexly that you can have something that is literally talking about plain text and be giving a metaphor at the same time. And like literally there's times where they talk about the king of Babylon, and in one part, if you're reading this, you start realizing, wait a minute, something's not adding up here. This can't be talking about the same Babylon that it was talking about at the beginning of here, because this did not happen here, but it happened 600 years later. And so you realize, like, wait a minute, is this talking about this one or that one? And so then you have to really go back and double read and realize when it's cut off, because a lot of people try to read the Bible like a book. That's where you will fail every single time. You cannot read the Bible that way because it's not meant to be that way. The Bible is literally written as a code book. It's literally meant for you to read this part, then go read that part. It'll talk about men or trees. Well, it'll say, and stay away from these trees. And you'll go to another part that'll describe men as trees. And it'll say, and these are trees of righteousness and things like that. And so it will give you the code to what it's saying somewhere in the Bible, almost always. You can go to another part and say, this is what that's talking about there. And then you'll read, it'll be reworded another way. Like for instance, one I always bring up, talking about the wheats and tares, talks about the sheep and goats, different things like that. It's literally talking about things that look similar but are not the same, and a separation between these things that look like this, look like that, and good and evil. So it's a lot that it throws in there. And I mean, even when certain prophets are talking about something, or even so-called Christ in the Bible, he might be talking about something, and they'll be like, I don't get what you're saying. And then he'll rephrase it and say it again another way. And he'll rephrase it with another parable. And then you start getting, oh, he's using a parable here. That doesn't mean that he was literally talking about goats and sheep. He's talking about people. When it talks about common or unclean in this part, he's not talking about eating common or unclean food. He's talking about dealing with people of different nations and stuff. That, oh, it's not a sin for you to deal with this person or deal. And so it takes a lot of rereading and to get into that minutia. So it wouldn't surprise me if there's some codes that people haven't necessarily unlocked.
Screw Google brings up a good point. He says you can get whatever number you want from any book you want. Yeah, they tried there was a Bible code. There was like several books that came out in the 80s about that, or one in particular. But then there was like ripoffs after that. But and they did this with War and Peace, and they did this with Moby Dick, and they used the same process, and they found using different predictions and stuff like that in those books. So, and it's like, well, that you say, okay, well, that just dispels the Bible. And to me, it's like, well, maybe these writers, like, the guys who wrote War and Peace and Moby Dick, maybe these were enlightened people as well. Maybe enlightened as much as the people who wrote the books of the Bible themselves. And maybe they themselves implanted a code into their texts because they had this advanced thinking about this, and that's why it's like that kind of stuff doesn't dispel the Bible code to me, although I'm very skeptical of everything about that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like, woohoo, it's for real. It might be. And it might be only in certain situations too.
Well, I look at it also, like for instance, when we talk about, like, for instance, Satan, which we didn't bring up Satan, but like Satan, the spiritual deity of Satan, he just like, Christ or God would have his people. I'm not saying they're the same necessarily. I'm not saying Christ is not a God, but I'm not saying he's the same as, the God of the universe. But anyway, I'm saying Satan would have a people also. So Satan has people that he would have demons and dominions, which are putting the spirit on people to do evil. Just like it might be a spirit put on you to run into this burning building and save this old lady. There's a spirit put on somebody to go out there and kidnap kids and women and do horrendous things.
Yeah.
And so just like there might be somebody who like Jonah, who was going back and trying to warn the people of Nineveh, hey, change this because a destruction is coming. And they repented from those ways and the destruction didn't come. The same way, in the Bible, it talks about one's volunteering to be a lying spirit. I'll go down there and I'll lie to them and I'll twist them up and get them to get themselves killed. It's the same thing. And so are there people who are out there writing books intentionally to discredit the Bible and know that, oh, well, I'm just writing it about this and it has nothing to do with that over there. All of that is going on. It's distractions. That's where the high degrees of chess are actually going on.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah,
because even the demons know the Bible too. Satan knows the Bible too.
Yeah, I mean, look at all the distractions that's going on in the world today now to keep us, keep our minds busy from the true evil that's going on.
Yeah. Or I was going to throw this out. Something secular wise. You guys think it's a coincidence that Trump is all over the news at the same time when they've been sending all this money to Ukraine and it's looking like they're about done? And they might have to pull out and tuck tail. You think that's a coincidence that all this is going on and they're not talking about Ukraine anymore?
Yeah. Get ready for Taiwan. That's the sequel.
Yep.
Well, let me ask you this final question to just kind of wrap up Revelation. In your mind, when the book talks about a new heaven and a new earth, what are they actually talking about? How is the earth new? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, what I believe that they're talking about there is they're talking about a new dominion, a new rule. when it talks about heaven, there's multiple meanings of what heaven means. One, you have the heaven where, you know, angelic beings are angelic beings and I would say spiritual beings, the creator, all that stuff dwells where we don't go, except for if we're dead and just our spirit goes up there, which our spirits do come back. But you also have heaven as in the clouds, the sky itself is a heaven. And then heaven is also a state of basically having, you know, power or being on top and things going your way. I mean, you've never had that day that went so perfect. You felt like, man, I'm in heaven. Everything is going right. Everything is going good. You have no problems. That's a form of heaven. When a king is able to have dominion over his own land, have sovereignty, his people are fed, everything is going good, you know, nice, beautiful sunsets and all that stuff. That's a form of heaven, literally. And so that's what it's talking about, because when it talks about all of the nations will be able to go back into their lands and they'll be able to have peace on earth, and they'll start learning the proper ways to how to live in this world. And so maybe you might go in that initial death, but through regeneration, you'll come back into the later world. And say, for instance, if your people are originally from parts of India, you'll be born back into parts of India or parts of Europe or wherever. You know, everybody will be born back into those places after, you know, after some unpleasant things have to happen before that. But,
Yeah.
you know, at that point in the very end, when we're talking about that new heaven and new earth, it's going to be when it talks about like a child will be able to play with a lion and be able to play with a bear. It's not literally talking about lion and bear. It's talking about the different nations will coalesce in harmony, and there won't be that animosity or evil or bitterness. Oh, I'm going to go into your land and steal this. All that ends at that point.
Well, it's like the old song says, you want to get to heaven, you got to raise a little hell. And that's basically what we're doing. Whether we want to or not, we are raising hell on this planet right now. So hopefully there's some heaven that
well, in America,
comes from it.
We're just like the barista who's on the Death Star. That's all. I mean, we can't help it.
The barista on the Death Star. That's perfect. Yeah. We are. And we keep misspelling people's names when we write them on their cups. So, Marcus, I appreciate you, man. We're at the 3-hour mark. This 3 hours is the fastest 3 hours I've ever felt. Well, except for the, the toilet bomb in there. That was a little unfortunate, but it was only a few minutes cut out of our time, but this has been fascinating. I mean, and we just did like a lot of surface level stuff.
Oh, this is surface level. I didn't even get into deep dives.
No. This is
when I literally broke down Revelation line by line, all 22 chapters, and showed him like, okay, yeah, so when it's talking about this here, I can show you this that ties to that. Here's this when it talks about, because it's a part where it starts talking about like, locusts, that he saw. John was seeing locusts in the air, and they had the power to sting from their tail, and they had.
Oh, that's what I wanted to ask you about. And that face of a human, isn't that a helicopter? Yeah.
Close. It's an airplane. And I'll tell you why.
The face of a man is the cockpit, right?
Face of a man is the cockpit. Think about it. Back in the World War I, the tail gunners, they used to fire from the back. That was the sting like a scorpion. And if you go back to those old Prussian-style helmets, remember it had the hair that came out of the top?
Mm-hmm.
And that hair that strung long like a woman's. And so that's what he was seeing. He's seeing those planes attacking me. And so from a distance, think if you're on the ground and you're looking at all these planes up in the air, it looks like locusts.
Yeah. I mean, couldn't the contrails of the plane too be like the hair too? Because it looks like a flowing like hair coming out of it or something.
Yeah, you could say that. I mean, he was seeing weapons of war.
Yeah.
That's what he was seeing. But if you're thinking of somebody who's in the 3rd century, 4th century, how would he know how to describe what any of that stuff is?
Right.
All he could do
Well,
is
it's like,
describe it the best of things that he knows of in his reality or his life.
yeah, like those people on the island in World War II. They didn't know what a plane was. They knew what it looked like. They didn't know what it was, but they knew it could go up in the air and it like a bird and that sort of thing. And it just like boggles the mind. But I wanted your first time on. I wanted to get the greatest hits out of the way, and then the next time I bring you on, we'll put you and I will get together. We'll pick a particular subject and do it like a deep dive. Bring your the helmets with the lights on, because we're gonna go down the rabbit hole.
Well, what I'll do is we can put together a presentation, and I'll bring Jose on with me, and then
I was gonna say bring Jose too. Yes, we'll definitely do that.
Into some stuff.
I think that'd be fantastic, man. Well, thanks for being on, man. And go ahead and pimp what you got coming up. What's going on with you and your crew? What's going on?
All right. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. I just dropped a video earlier today on Been Thinking with Young Morpheus. And so if you guys want to go check that video out, it is Astra Lumina, which is kind of cool. It matches with a lot of the music which Warren has here. As you guys can see over my left shoulder, that is Jose right there, the Ephraimite. And so yeah, Jose definitely has plenty of stuff. As you guys can see, the sun is starting to come in on my green screen a little bit. That's what I just dropped that one. So make sure you guys check that out. I did an interview right before that I really think people should check out. A couple of interviews. I did one with Sweta Agrawal, which goes into colorism. Her book is really good. I just did one with Octo Squid talking about East Palestine, and I did one with Yona talking about Dow Chemicals. So definitely check those out. Of course, Political Matrix. And then if you guys are into more of the theological topics, my boy John, who's out there, he drops in a lot on Hebrew apologetics with Young Morpheus and Jose. Please check us out over there also.
One thing I forgot to ask you about, but I think we should totally consider this for the subject next time. And one of my producers, Pacheco Roan, suggested this Ark of the Covenant.
Okay. Yeah.
And the manna from heaven too. I think those two would make an interesting evening of conversation the next time you come on, or if you find something better too, we could do that too.
No, we're gonna. I like those topics. We're gonna pencil those in, and then I got one more to add into that. That I think that people might find interesting. What is it? When Moses parted the Red Sea?
Yes.
You guys might like that one. So
Burning Bush too.
The
Burning Bush is kind of a
bore
weird
you guys
too.
a little bit, but I definitely think that would be a good topic too.
I just think this giant comb came down out of the sky and just like just kind of parted it, kind of gave like the Red Sea a butt cut.
Well, I'm gonna send you a video. It was a cop and a let's see, one guy's a cop and I can't remember what the other guy was. But they did this. They went out and did some investigating. That's all I'll say.
Okay.
And so it dispels what's recognized as the location and gives another location.
Right on, man. Well, listen, this was 3 hours of just jam-packed information. I really appreciate your knowledge. I appreciate your friendship, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing all this with us. I just eat this stuff up, and my crew here too. We just love this kind of stuff. That's why I do this show. We of course, news shows and even entertainment shows that we have in our space are very important, but I think we also need to stretch our brains a little bit. Whether you believe this stuff or not, it doesn't hurt you to actually think about this stuff and think about the plausibility of a lot of this stuff in here. So Rick says, great show. Lots of hand claps. Thank you. It was a great show. Thank you, man. Thank you so much. And as for me, we're still not done this. Well, we're done for today. I've got 2 extra Bullet shows tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. Misty Winston's going to come on. We're going to talk about the 4th year anniversary of Julian Assange in Belmarsh Prison and some events that are going to be held regarding that. And then at 8 p.m. Eastern, I'm getting my guys on, Jerry and Ed from Chicago Corner. They're going to be talking about the direction their channel is going and new stuff that's happening with them. Lots of good. I love good conversation, man. I'm a chatty Cathy, but I'm a good listener, and I think it's a good flow. Everything today was beautiful. I really appreciate you for doing that, man. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're definitely welcome.
All right.
It was definitely my pleasure.
Woohoo! And we're gonna have more. So
at the end,
you gotta be careful. I may rope you in as a permanent co-host. So just.
I mean, I wouldn't mind. I mean, it's some good topics.
I'm a bit of a Svengali. I can get in your head, man. I'd be like
topics all the time.
I know, right? It's just fun to talk about. I mean, you have like it's even more fun to talk about it with somebody that actually knows a lot of the details and stuff, the backstories and the histories and stuff like that a lot of like stoners like me don't really like. We just do the surface level, and even just the surface level stuff is cool, and it's like, oh, wait till you get to the good stuff underneath.
You gotta remember, I used to be a stoner too, so
hey, I people throw rocks at me all the time. So wow. I don't have my sound effects. That's on another show. But thanks, Marcus. I appreciate it. And I want to thank everybody in the chat, over on Rockfin and on YouTube. Appreciate all y'all. Love you so much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I think Due Dissidence is on right now. And so check them out. And check out Marcus and Chris on Political Matrix, all his channels. Check him out on Twitter as well. I got links down below in the description for Marcus as well. So everybody enjoy.
It's not hard to find me.
I know, right? You're a beacon of light in the darkness, friend. I'll tell you that right now. So thanks, everybody. Have a great night. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Peace.